Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting of Monday, June the 23rd. I will now call today's meeting to order, and I would like to begin by recognizing that this meeting is happening on the ancestral unceded territories of the Sooke and Shaanu Nations. We are going to begin today with employee recognition. We have several employees, in fact, that will be recognized for 5, 15, and in some cases, 20 years of service. However, not all employees wish to be formally recognized in this way, so I'm only going to single out a handful, namely one who's in chambers today. But I'd like to start off by recognizing Mr. Paul Bohemier. He's been with the district now for 5 years, and since joining us as manager of the wastewater plant, Mr. Bohemier has shown unwavering commitment to both his role and the community, from his leadership at our wastewater treatment plant to his service as a on-call firefighter, his willingness to lend a hand at community events and as well as directing traffic. He is a shining example of civic spirit. So thank you, Paul. Your contributions help make Sooke a stronger, more connected place to live, and we're grateful for the work you're doing. Miss Moog is also not here today, but as you know, she is our champion of civic engagement, brand stewardship, and communications, and we are recognizing her for 5 years as well. Through effective storytelling and strategic communications, Christina ensures that residents are informed, included, and inspired to participate in local initiatives. Her work has significantly strengthened our relationship between the district and citizens, fostering a sense of civic pride and community awareness. Ms. Moog is likely at the Highway 14 open house that's occurring at this time. Mr. Andrew McNeil is also recognized for 5 years. His quiet dedication is appreciated by colleagues at the wastewater treatment plant. Beyond his core responsibility, he generally gives time as the vice president of QP Local 374. Thank you, Andrew, for 5 years of service, for being a reliable and thoughtful presence in both your workplace and union community. And also a special mention tonight is also his birthday. So happy birthday to Andrew. And I will not sing because you probably would not appreciate that. So finally, I'd like to recognize Mr. Jeff Carter, who is with us in the audience today. Mr. Carter's been with us for 5 years now, and he brings both passion and vision to every project he touches. Over the past 5 years, his drive to move initiatives forward has brought a new life to local planning here in Sooke, whether it's been to secure grants, crafting thoughtful plans. Jeff has been instrumental in shaping the future of Sooke, and we look forward to your continued impact in the works ahead. Thank you for making our streets safer and more reliable for young people of all ages. So I do have your certificate, Mr. Carter, but maybe, do you want to take a picture? You don't have to. You're all right. Okay, that's fine, but I will hand it to you at the end of the meeting. So thank you for being here. And there are, like I said, 10, 15, and 20 years. So I will be handing those out. We also have long service pins per our district policy. So I will be looking for and handing those out to staff throughout the community later on in this week. So thank you, everyone, for your work, everyone throughout the district. Next up, just a reminder of some housekeeping. We will take a recess about 90 minutes into today's meeting. Council, if I forget, please remind me so we can take a 10-minute break. Also in front of you, councilors, are microphones. You may have seen these before. They all have an on and off switch. So before you speak, please turn it on. And when you're finished, please turn it off. This is so that those who may be hard of hearing can hear you, as well as those that are participating online, because if you don't turn it on, they cannot hear you. And also for future record keeping, transparency, or to look back into meetings, this provides a recorded of what you have to say. So I imagine we all want to be heard. So please remember to turn them on and off. When I remind you to turn them off, because we can only have 3 on at a time. And if more than one is on, there is a lot of feedback, which makes it very difficult for those that are listening and participating from home. So your work with the microphone would be greatly valued tonight. Okay, so on that note, we will move into today's agenda and I will look for council to look at please approving the meeting agenda for June 23rd. That's moved by Councillor Beddoes and seconded by Councillor St-Pierre. All those in favor, please. And that's carried unanimously. Meeting minutes here for adoption are a regular council meeting of June the 9th and the committee of the whole of June the 16th. Moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Pearson. All those in favor? And that too is carried unanimously. So that brings us to our report of the Chief Administrative Officer. Over to Ms. Gray.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple things to highlight in the report directly tying into, they're both connected there, is July 2nd is both the property tax due date and the advance voting day occurring at Municipal Hall. So just want to highlight that to anybody listening online is if you're here to happen to pay your taxes, you can also do your advance voting as well. So and other than that, OCP engagement should be ratcheting up again with July 3rd tentatively scheduled, the Land Use and Development Committee meeting to do a presentation there. And bylaw 925, formerly bylaw 404, we are starting to do the public engagement sessions this week, tomorrow and Wednesday. And district budget survey is coming. I think maybe just got released. Ms. Moog has been working with all the departments on that. So leave it there and happy to answer any questions as I will be presenting on the annual report and the strat plan check-in later. So.
Any questions for CAO Gray? Okay, thank you. So we will move on to our public question and comment period. So this spot is reserved for members of the public here in attendance today. Should you wish to address council, please come forward, turn on the microphone and let us know which item you are wishing to discuss. And we would also appreciate your name and the municipality that you call home. And we have 2 minutes per speaker. When you start speaking, we will start timing. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Catherine Strongwind, and I'm a resident of Sooke and a candidate in the Sooke by-election. Congratulations to the Sooke employees who are celebrating a milestone anniversary. We are very fortunate to have dedicated and skilled staff working within the district of Sooke. I'd like to speak to 2 items today. 2 are combined, and then a third one rather. Items 8.4 and 8.5 regarding the Community Economic Development Committee. As a member of the standing committee, I again urge council to consider a monthly versus bi-monthly meeting and to prioritizing an update to the Community Economic Development Strategy that was created in 2021. Not only has Sooke seen a dramatic population increase since then, we are now combating significant transportation congestion and threats to our proposed tourism plan. We would be better positioned to create solutions if we were able to meet more frequently. Item 8.8, the development permit for Lincroft Road and Logan Lane. I support the recommendation from the majority of the Land Use and Development Committee and from staff's report to grant the development permit. Not only does this plan align with the OCP and the Transportation Master Plan, it will improve road access and will also potentially create more commercial space in our town core. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak this evening, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Other speakers today?
Ellen Lures, Sooke, with a 603-page agenda. Unbelievable. There's a number of things in here. One, so much to read. I don't know how you got it all read. Talking about using the draft OCP in some of our bylaws and things like that. And I'm wondering why that is. It's a draft. It shouldn't be part of what our bylaws are. The other thing that I noticed in economic development and also in strategic planning, that there is no discussion about food security or how we look after food. And that's the most important thing. If we don't have food or water, we're not going to survive. So none of the other things matter. So nothing in here about that. The only thing there is the province talks about it, but it talks about more rules and regulations on farming and growing agriculture. So I think that that's a priority and it's not in here. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers today?
Hello, my name's Helen Ritz. I'm also a candidate for the by-election, but I'm here as a downtown resident today. I have a question about 8.8 under the consent agenda. It's an unfortunate title because, to be clear, it mentions that it's a development permit, but it's not. Apparently, it's an odd. So it's not a rezoning and it's not a development permit. It is simply a subdivision conglomeration. So that the subdivision really isn't my issue, but the way the writing in it, there is a kind of a north-south road connection from Logan Lane through to Lincroft. And it's written as though there is a section, I think it's called a 219 or something, I think. I don't believe that's correct. So I just wanted to state that at some point, we should look at that. That road connection is not on our transportation master plan. If you look at our 2008 town center plan, there are those north-south connections in there. There's also a connection from Logan Lane to Brownsea Boulevard. That connection was taken away for I think it was West Urban. So, I'm all about plans. We're going to do a review of our transportation plan this year. We're also going to finalize our OCP. So I just wanted really to state for the record that I don't believe that particular road connection is a done deal. I think it needs to be looked at, and if it makes sense, I would support it. But since we're doing these plan updates, I'm here to say we should look at those and make sure they jive. And I'm also hoping that we do a new town center plan because the one is from 2008. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Do I have other speakers tonight?
Herb Haldane, District of Sooke. And the agenda item I'd like to talk about would be the same thing, the connection of Lincroft. The whole idea here is to try and get connecting roads in Sooke. We've been looking at it for a long time. The OCP that we have in place right now and the transportation master plan that was attached to that official community plan did have that road cross section. We have a new OCP sitting there. We're going over it now, and that's where the new transportation master plan reflects from. It doesn't reflect from the one we're actually using. It reflects from the one that we're not using. So the whole idea here is to try and stay consistent, but we were jumping the gun because we thought the other OCP was going to make it through, and it hasn't done that yet. So there's probably going to be ratifications to that plan at this time, and maybe those roads should be added to the transportation plan, seeing that we're trying to get cars moving around Sooke and we need more options. That's why we're looking at through road connectors and so on. At this point here as well, and I respect Helen and what she does, but at the same time, she lives in the neighborhood. If we want to create some sort of plans here, we should be doing that with an open mind. And we shouldn't have, some bias, which if I was living in the neighborhood, I'd probably have an issue with it as well. But when we sit on committees that is making these decisions and moving stuff forward, it'd be good to sit out for conflicts in that case. But thank you.
Okay, other speakers today? Okay, I'm just going to see if there's any first-time speakers in the gallery that wish to speak. This is your only opportunity to speak tonight, is right now. Any first-timers walking in the door that wish to speak tonight? Were you gentlemen looking to speak? Okay.
No.
Okay, that's okay. That's fine. I'm just checking. Okay, I will call the second-time speakers back, please.
Helen Ritz. I just wanted to say I'm uncomfortable with being called bias. I think I'm quite clear that I just want the plans to align. I am a town center resident. I am supportive of plans, but it's we should look at them and review them. Certainly, when I moved into the neighborhood, I support density, but I want the plans to match. I want one plan and it's been since 2008, and I'm merely asking that we make sure that our plans are cohesive and they match. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that clarity, Ms. Ritz. Were there, okay? Ms. Lewis, you're speaking again?
Yes, thank you, Ellen Lewis. I just wanted to speak about the economic driver that food is, and it's not in the economic plan as well, and I did bring that up at an open house, because food is the driver. Grocery stores, it's not just food, it's everything. It's clothing, it's wool, it's everything. So I think there needs to be more emphasis. I know there needs to be more emphasis put on economic drivers, food, and more security and more thought put into a permanent country market so that we can actually have a strong economic driver of food in Sooke, and less regulations. And when you go to your UBCMs, tell them to back off with the regulations. It's already bad as it is. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Are there any other speakers tonight for a second time or otherwise? Okay, so we will carry on with tonight's agenda, and that moves us into the consent agenda, of which we have several items, starting with 8.1 all the way to 8.10. Was any member of council looking to pull anything for individual discussion? Councillor Beddoes.
Yes, your worship. I've turned on my mic and I will say I would like to have item 8.8 removed for discussion.
Item 8.8. Okay, thank you. So just for clarity to our corporate officer, when we pull these, oh yes, we move them into the 14 section. So it'll be 8.8. Anything else?
Can I have a point of clarity?
Well, in the microphone, sure.
I'm turning that on right now, and
Excellent.
you're going to turn yours off.
Once you are ready, yes, I've acknowledged
I am-
you now.
Okay, I'm ready to speak. I just wanted clarity that if we don't pull an item from this consent agenda, the motion as indicated within the agenda will pass council, and that will be automatically approved by council.
Yes, for clarity, what is on the agenda cover sheet would be the committee recommendations. And if left on the consent agenda, that's what would be passed by council.
Thank you.
The staff recommendation sometimes is in the staff report, which may be different from what is on the agenda cover sheet. But that is there for council's reference to see if the committee had a different motion than staff's recommendation. And that's why the staff recommendation is still in the report. So the agenda cover sheet will be the committee's motions.
Okay. All right, so nothing, Councillor St. Pierre then.
I'd like to move the remaining items.
Okay, so Councillor Pearson, or pardon me, St. Pierre is moving all remaining items to be adopted by consent. And that's seconded by Councillor Bateman. So would you like to speak to the consent agenda?
Actually, I will say one thing. I'm very impressed with the use that's being made of the committees, the committee of the whole, the various committees, the representation from the public and from council. I think it's allowing us to get through a huge amount of work and good decision-making in a way that I had never seen before. So kudos to everyone involved, and thank you so much to our committee members, to staff, and to council for participating. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, I'll just add that there's some very significant pieces of business within this consent agenda, and we'll be seeing that again and again as these committees do their work. So yes, good work.
So I'll just note though, in August, we don't have any meetings. So committee members should not expect to meet in August because people are away on vacation and the like. September schedule may be a bit of a juggle because of UBCM. So I think you just need to just manage that going forward. Both committees are scheduled to meet in July as is. But there will not be any meetings in August, and council will meet if the situation arises where a special meeting needs to be called. So just be mindful of scheduling. And to the member of the public who commented on our volumes of reading, thank you for that. A lot of these items are here in front of us for a second time because they would have come to a committee prior or to a committee of the whole. So this is our actual second time in seeing the items here. But there is a lot, but we've already read it a few times. So thank you for pointing that out. Okay, anything from anyone else on council? All right, I'll call the question then. All in favor, please. And that's carried unanimously. So we'll move on then into our report section, I believe. Because all of these have been. Okay. 9.1 will be our first item, and that is our 2024 annual report. So over to our CAO, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a PowerPoint with this presentation. I was just going to speak to it for a few minutes here, and then I have a PowerPoint to go along with the strat plan check-in. So for the annual report for 2024, we received one piece of correspondence with a bit of feedback on the report, and to my knowledge, that's the only piece of correspondence we received about it. And some of the items in the report, as council knows, this is kind of the latest and greatest version of this report. It has been improving and being enhanced over the years based on community feedback and clearer direction from council on what we're doing and what the priorities are of the district. So this has really helped form a foundational document and a check-in for the community and for council and for staff on all the things we accomplished during the year. For 2024, a couple of things I wanted to highlight was there was 1,542 building inspections completed, which supporting housing diversity. I hear a lot of complaints from the community that we don't do enough and fast enough, and just want to highlight that sure, we can always do better, but we did complete 1,542 building inspections last year, which is quite a lot when we, at one point in time last year, had 0 building inspectors on staff. So that's a huge accomplishment for the district and for the staff involved. And another thing that came up, I hear the comments about the food security piece, and just wanted to highlight, well, maybe it wasn't articulated as clearly in this report, and we'll take note of that for going forward. We did support numerous community groups this year with food security initiatives through community grants, through climate action funding, through hours and hours and hours of staff support was a big support that we gave these groups when involved in food security. I know Ms. Moog and Ms. Taylor spent hours and hours and hours with various local groups to support them on their food security initiatives. And as well, a big project that took up a significant portion of staff time last year was the renegotiation of the Sun River Community Garden initiative, agreements for renewal there. So while always more to do and appreciate the feedback, we definitely are not losing sight of that. We're just doing what we can with the capacity and the resources we have. But we'll definitely make sure to highlight that a bit more clearer going forward. Another item I want to highlight in here, which is kind of a flushed out, revamped version of this, is the council leadership and advocacy section. And just highlighting, we're trying to be a lot more transparent, and we'll have an update on our website going through this year with a lot of the initiatives on what is council advocating for, what have they done, what's the responses we've received to these letters. So this is kind of a check-in for last year, and then we'll form our reporting out on this more robustly throughout 2025 here. And the last item, before I'll just leave it to open it up to council for questions, is the Truth and Reconciliation section. That's something that working with the Sooke and our Shaanu partners, we're trying to be more cognizant of and aware of, and just highlighted, in print, we do work together a lot, and a lot of things are sensitive and similar to the years of service thing for people. They don't want things known publicly, but just know that similar to climate action and other things, these are just ingrained in how we do business now, and it's a topic of conversation. Any initiative we're going through at the time is, what's the First Nations angle of this? Is this something we need to discuss with them? Do they have the capacity? And so we're very aware of that and trying to do better at publicly reporting what the First Nations would like us to, and then just reinforcing this in our day-to-day practices. And filled through there, obviously, is some of the required documentation. And I told Mr. Curry I would just highlight this, that we had submitted our annual report last year for an award through Government Financial Officers Association. and didn't receive the award last year, got some feedback on some other information that needs to be included to be considered for that award. So that's this whole back section, statistics section has been added because that's kind of some of the fun things that I thought Councillor Bainton would really like this section, and maybe Councillor McMath could pour over this with lots of stats. And this is nice because it just sets a metric for this year, and then as you'll see, we'll just keep adding on to this every year. And it's just kind of amazing, what gets measured gets managed. So it's kind of nice to have this data set available to us and just to keep flushing it out from year to year. And just shocked at how far we've come. I think this year I became the permanent CAO in March of 2024. So this is even a full year, and what we've accomplished, I think I'm pretty proud of. I'm super grateful to the team. I definitely didn't do this by myself. So really appreciated the council for the support and for the team having my back and producing all this amazing work for us. I heard a question, I don't know if it was in the strat plan or this one. Somebody, did you really hire 30% of your staff last year? Yes, we did. 30%. So that just tells you, doing more with less is something that we know how to do in Sooke for sure. So, getting at least the vacant positions filled has been huge for us. And I'm looking forward to, what 2025's version will look like. One quick tidbit on the staffing piece before I shut this off is, I know a couple of the staff didn't want to be formally recognized, but a couple of them are celebrating a couple of big years, so I'll wear this for the team. Nikki Zare, Deborah Knight are both 20 years, and Deputy Chief McCrae is 15 years, and Leah Giles, our quiet, working behind the scene GIS staff member, is celebrating her 15 years as well. So it's really exciting to have this mix of long time and brand new staff, and just watching the synergies there. I will just close that off there and answer any questions about the annual report.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gray. I appreciate how the benefit of applying for those awards is to get the feedback, which lends us to improving our materials. So thank you for going out and doing that. Councillor St. Pierre.
Thank you very much, through your worship. I really appreciate that the report is, for the most part, in really plain language that actually lays out what the district has actually been doing so that people actually understand the work that's involved. So that's excellent. I do have a couple of comments, unfortunately, and I missed them before, so it's too late now for this year, but maybe next year. I was looking at the org chart, and I'm sure it's clear to some, but to me it looks like there's a whole bunch of departments that are all under the RCMP. And I know for sure that, well, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people half the district is not reporting to the RCMP. So if we could just clarify that org chart so that some of that stuff isn't quite as confusing, because I had a moment of, really, is that how it works? No. So just that one thing. And the other thing is that we have a lot of people in the community that wonder if and what exactly we're doing about climate action. And there is a mention in one paragraph about the LCR lens, which I know that all staff uses and the entire organization is using in guiding our decision-making and guiding our work. There's a beautiful chart at some point of what that looks like. I would love to see that chart instead of the big photo of the beach, so that people actually understand, so what are they using and what does it look like? So a little more information on the LCRs so that people have a better understanding of how the district is actually addressing what a whole of government approach actually looks like. Because there's a lot of people that care deeply about this, and they don't necessarily realize we're doing anything when we're actually densifying, putting in active transportation, putting in roads with bicycle strips, doing economic development, all the rest of that stuff. Trying to lay that out much more clearly, I think, would really bring some reassurance to a lot of people in Sooke. So that would be lovely. And other than that, I do think that we need to move forward. I want to comment on the food security piece. At this point in time, I believe there's a possible direction to have a subcommittee or some part of either ECDEV or land use that would have representatives of potentially the Sooke Region Food Systems Network to act as an advisory body that could help the district and staff in terms of capacity, understanding what could be done in terms of bottlenecks in food security and so on. I'm looking forward to those conversations coming forward. I do recognize that stuff is not in here and that it's deeply disturbing, because we've been trying to work on this since our climate action plan of 2018. And we still don't really have much traction, but I think it's because it's a really tough nut to crack. And hopefully we'll make some more progress. Thank you.
Okay, great feedback. Other comments from members of council? Okay, Councillor Bateman.
Yeah. So through you to staff, thank you very much. Every year it's a deeper, more informative annual report, particularly these, the 5-year tables, comparison tables for bylaw, police and fire calls, and the back of the book statistical material to give us true context for where Sooke sits in this large field of local governments. I had a couple of very minor questions. I was curious to see that there's be a launch of an illegal dumping education campaign, 48 incidents in 2024. And I've been, in signing checks, I've discovered that Victoria Contracting charges us approximately $75 to $100 for a small cleanup. So this is a significant piece. How do you intend to roll that out?
Through your worship to Councillor Bateman. I don't know all the specifics of it as it's just kind of being developed and some of the communications to go out. But I'm assuming it will be Ms. Moog and Ms. Taylor just working collectively on the best way to get this information out. It's kind of, I think this, my assumption is some of their initial struggle is it's, usually the people that are dumping aren't the ones reading the newspaper or going, oh, don't dump. So it's how to find the source of the people that are doing that and the best way to do that. But my understanding would just be like a public education campaign of just, hey, do you know when you dump this costs X months of tax dollars to dispose of that now? Is that fair that you do this? And not that we want people ratting each other out per se, but also it is a big problem. Sooke is one of the, a large geographic land base that needs to be covered. We have, I think last count, maybe 5 full-time parks employees so economies of scale are just not there. They just simply can't be in every park proactively, getting on top of these garbage. And then you see the bears and all of these other conversations. So I believe they're just kind of working on developing that over the summer. And then with a lot of the comms as we're out and about in the community, just getting a lot more community awareness. Sorry, I don't know all the details yet, but I'll definitely find a bit more. But it's just going to be more of a, again, like we've been doing, just a public information campaign, go to our website, here's some information on what the cost and the impact is to the environment and the community and all of that. So more to come.
Yeah, good. So on that, this report captures all these fractal, seemingly small action items, as well as the bigger picture. So again, great work. I had another question here. The District Learning and Development Program is referenced on page 23. Tell me what that's all about. I think.
So the Learning and Development Program, through your worship to Councillor Bateman, that is an initiative that we, spoke to council about. Every organization has a learning and development budget for their staff to take various training courses, that have to be normally in relation to the job that they're doing. Certain other organizations, like for my accounting designation, I have to have a certain number of hours of professional development every year to maintain my designation. So it's just, we've gotten other feedback from employees over the years that while we do the normal smaller professional development budget, there's been asks and other municipalities are starting to go down here. And I know the province has this program where for more bigger, like robust programs, there's a different kind of program created for that potentially. So it would be like if somebody wants to do their bachelor's of commerce degree and they're not working in the finance department right now, it could eventually benefit the district. And the way it works usually is there's like a payback mechanism. Like if we pay for X a year, then you have to work for us for 2 years. Otherwise you'll prorated pay it back to us if you end up leaving your employment before that. So it's kind of just fleshing out that program to give council options on what this could look like. And this will kind of form the 2026 employee long-term strategy that we'll be presenting to council. This is a little subset of it, of just like, hey, there is an option down the road to have a separate bucket of budget available that, for staff retention and to benefit the district. You set this program up and they could apply for it. And it's as long as they pass their courses and return of service to the district, then they can have certain amounts paid for each year. So that's a little bit about it. More to come for sure on that.
Okay. And finally, just as a testament to our communications department, this is a whole of organization document put together by by Christine.
Department of
Yeah.
One.
And I just noted the electronic newsletter reach, open rates exceeding industry average. 68% of people open their newsletters compared to 20% across the province. So again, testament to the quality of the documents being circulated here.
Okay, Councillor Pearson.
Yes, thank you. And to our CEO, good work on this report. Lots of mine down details, which, you know, traditionally we haven't seen. So, 1,542 building inspections, 6 to 10 a day. I guess I kind of did my math here. On average, how is that trending in 2025? And one number that seems that I would like to see is how many final occupancy permits as a result of the 1,542? And I don't expect you to answer that right now.
I'm not
Just want to know kind of, you know, we're doing 1,542 inspections, which is a lot of inspections, 6 to 10 every day. How many houses are getting that final occupancy? And I don't need a answer for that.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely something we can report on throughout the year here. And just also a point of clarity is usually houses take multiple inspections. So.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious on that. And the MTI, municipal ticket, whatever it's called, warning parking tickets, I noticed jumped significantly in 2024. Is that a result of a new parking enforcement organization associated with fishing, or is it district-wide? Because it's more than double from 2023 and more than quadruple from 2022.
Through your worship to Councillor Pearson, I don't know the weeds of that number off the top of my head, but I can definitely find out and get back to you. I think my general understanding is maybe a little bit from the boat launch parking, but there's also just, again, as more people are here, as more newsletters are being read with, hey, go to our website, and if you have a concern about something, go here and fill out this form and file a complaint or a concern. I think there's some of that too, but I can definitely flesh out a bit more of the data set. And that's also why in 2025, we're asking, or for this 2026's budget survey, we're asking a question about. Right now, we currently take a more of a reactive approach to bylaw enforcement and a pathway to compliance approach with everybody versus ticket first, ask questions later. So we do have a lot of these parking complaints are like ticket first, ask questions later. And so just want to get a bit more of a pulse check on the community of, is that the approach you want to go and what does that look like? So then we can at least ensure that department's properly resourced. So I can definitely, sorry, long-winded answer. I'll definitely find you a bit more details on the parking.
And I don't want to, it's just, there's some interesting stats. There's a ton of information in this report, 1 ton. So, and my last question is, with the 1,542 building permits, do we have any indication at mid-year yet how we're trending year over year? Because I mean, I'm hearing of an economic slowdown. I'm seeing a lot of for sale signs in Sooke. Is that, you know, are we still building at the same rate?
And through your worship, I can get back to you on that. I think that was similar to your first question, right? Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
I'll get back to you on the next update for sure.
Councillor Pearson, just to add that prior to the Old Man Lake fire occurring last summer, there was a significant issue on Sooke River Road with cars blocking the egress into the Potholes Gateway Park. And in that case, there has been direct ticketing and in some cases towing because it was creating a bottleneck, especially on warm days when the parking is spilling out. So that may also be, that was something I was hearing about. I'm like, well, don't park there because you're blocking the road. It narrows and it's difficult from a life safety perspective for a cruise to get in there. And then, of course, it went away because it was closed for a while. Hopefully not this year.
Thank you.
That could be
And
why.
that actually makes sense. So thank you.
Okay. So the recommendation here today is that council consider and receive the District of Sooke's 2024 annual report as presented. So that's moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Beddoes. Would you like to speak? Okay, you're good. Councillor Beddoes?
No, just a thanks for that report. That very, very detailed, lots to read and lots of information. Thank you.
Anything from anyone else? Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next up is 9.2, strategic plan check-in and operational update.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a bit of a PowerPoint here, so if you bear with me, I'll be a slightly longer presentation than the annual report. But just thought it was important to highlight some few things here on our strategic plan check-in and operational alignment. So today's presentation is both a check-in on the progress of our strategic plan and recognition of the day-to-day work that supports its implementation. Much of what we'll share we'll share highlights of just how busy the organization is, delivering essential services while also advancing a significant number of new strategic initiatives. I'll walk through key updates and share a few highlights from the 2024 annual report to help illustrate the operational demands we're managing. And before we begin, I'd like to note that staff have developed a summarized status tracker of every action item on the strat plan. The tracker is going to clearly indicate whether items are complete, in progress, on hold, or not started yet, and is now available on our website under Council Strategic Plan, and then there's a hyperlink to the progress tracking documentation. Today marks our first formal check-in, and since the strat plan was endorsed on October 28th last year, and I'll share some successes and challenges we're experiencing as we move this work forward. Maybe. Perfect. Okay, so overall, there's a lot happening in case you didn't know. We're managing over 100 strategic actions on top of delivering day-to-day municipal services. Many of these are significant, which include the advancing of the official community plan update, the submission of the municipal regional district tax application, updating the subdivision and development standards bylaw, and collaborating with the Ministry of Transportation and Transit, I think they're called now, sorry, it says infrastructure, and identifying policy gaps and prioritizing policy and bylaw reviews. And of course, along the way, we also celebrated our 25 years since incorporation. There's a few pictures on the slide from that event at Woodside Farms. Anchoring our strategic plan. And also I will send this copy of this PowerPoint around after. As usual, we were just kind of working on it during the day today here. So our strategic plan is a reflection of our vision, our mission, and our core values. Our vision reminds us of the unique character of Sooke and our aspiration for an inclusive, healthy, and self-sufficient community. Our mission is about how we serve by honoring our identity, planning for growth, and supporting a resilient economy. And our core values shape every decision we make, whether we're updating policy and designing a trail or engaging with residents. They remind us to lead with integrity, plan for the long term, and ensure our work fosters a vibrant and inclusive community. These values are more than just words on a page. They're a reflection of what matters to the people of Sooke and a compass for how we implement the strategic plan. The values and guiding principles are crucial in our day-to-day work. I've worked hard to build a team that has strong moral and ethical, professional and personal values, as having these strong ethics is critical to build trust within the community. Areas of focus. So as the community and council should be aware, we have 5 areas of focus. The 5 areas define the big picture of direction for the district over the next few years, and those include sustainable growth and environmental stewardship, community economic development, supporting community safety and well-being, infrastructure investments and multimodal transportation networks, and organizational development and capacity building. These aren't just themes, they're action drivers. Everything we're reporting on ties back into one or more of these pillars. They help us stay aligned in purpose and direction. We can't be everything to everyone, so staying on task is important to manage capacity expectations, and I'd rather do less well than deliver more at a substandard product or service. And with that, I'll just dive into some of the work underway and some of the highlights of our recent achievements. The first being the advancing of truth and reconciliation. So the district is advancing truth and reconciliation in a meaningful, action-oriented ways, guided by respect, humility, and partnership. We acknowledge that Sooke is on the unceded territories of the Sooke and Shaanu nations and honor their enduring connection to this land. Reconciliation is embedded across our organization, from cultural training, inclusive planning, to ecological restoration and emergency management. Examples include Indigenous-led ecological work, like the Sooke River Knotweed Project, the public art and Signage recognizing Indigenous language and coordinated emergency planning, as well as shared infrastructure grant applications and shared ecological stewardship projects. This long-term work rooted in shared responsibility and a commitment to growing together as a community. Regulatory and planning updates. So we're also making solid progress on updates to several key regulatory documents. The major focus right now is the subdivision development and standards bylaw, now bylaw 925. This update is a significant milestone. So I've started my 8th year working at the district here this year, and I think bylaw 404 has been a bone of contention since well before I started working here. So I'm very excited to have this bylaw updated, presented to council initially, and now later this week, going through the community public engagement piece of this to get this critical bylaw updated, adopted. So we're all working from the same playbook with the same common understanding of what the interpretation of these rules and guidelines mean. So far, early feedback points to the importance of implementing complete streets, which is principles outlined in our transportation master plan. And as we engage further with those working in the field, we're checking to ensure the bylaw supports a practical real-world application. As we know, having a plan is one thing, ensuring it's implementable is another. And the other big piece is the official community plan is also moving ahead. A draft engagement plan is first going to the Land Use and Development Committee before coming to council. And this step is critical to ensuring we continue building our community in a thoughtful and sustainable way. Throughout this presentation, you'll have a consistent message. We need to stay focused on current priorities. We are absolutely at capacity. Completing the work already in motion, like these 2 major initiatives, which reflect years of effort, is essential. Let's stay the course and bring these important projects across the finish line. A couple other items we got going on are master plan check-ins. From a policy and planning perspective, this year marks an important checkpoint for several of our major guiding documents. These include the Transportation Master Plan and the Parks and Trails Master Plan. These updates will help assess progress, identify gaps, and guide the next phase of implementation. I'd like to remind, I guess, council and the community of when we got the feedback from Urban Systems when they were looking at our transportation master plan. I remember a few months ago now, they commended the amount of work we got completed in the 5 years of this plan. Like most plans sit there, like our last one did, and not much got action. So big kudos to the finance and the operations department who worked closely together to find the funding to get these projects happening. Emergency preparedness is another foundational area. Early this year, council endorsed the district's first 3-year emergency management program plan. So we're now moving to the next critical step of a community-wide hazard risk and vulnerability assessment. And this work is underway and will keep us, help us be better understanding our risks and strengthen local resilience. There's a strong alignment between emergency preparedness efforts and climate action priorities. Upcoming climate milestones include bike racks for businesses and new units in parks, added amenities like bike pumps and repair stations on trails, 4 new EV charging stations, 2 at Municipal Hall and 2 at John Phillips Park through a successful CRD grant, and the recent retrofit fair, which we hosted as part of Community Day. Alongside truth and reconciliation and accessibility, these priorities are becoming part of our organizational culture. Specific to accessibility, you heard during last week's Committee of the Whole meeting, now this is showing up in cross-departmental work, integrated in day-to-day operations, program design, and council decision-making. To begin planting the seeds for fall check-ins, it's worth noting that implementing the Transportation and Parks and Trails Master Plan so far focused on capital projects with bylaw 925 as the primary focus. As this phase near completion, attention is shifting towards the next wave of policy development, which many of which are already outlined in the strategic plan, which include evaluating traffic flow in and around town center to support better access, safety, and mobility, and developing neighborhood parking plans to improve livability and function, especially in the core. What stood out in this presentation is that we're not just reacting, we're planning ahead, aligning policies, and building the foundation for sustainable growth and service delivery. And with that, we will now shift to the governance and policy side of our work, where we're also making good progress. So earlier this year, Council completed its first formal check-in on the Code of Conduct policy. a key governance tool that helps guide respectful and accountable behavior at the council table. This review is not only reaffirmed council's commitment to good governance, but also demonstrated a willingness to reflect, adapt, and lead by example. Beyond that, there's several new and revised policies that have either been adopted or are coming forward shortly. These policies are grounded in the principles of clarity, fairness, and transparency, helping to strengthen how we engage with the public, how we support community-based initiatives, and how we ensure consistency in decision-making. External policies, just some examples of some of the policies that have been created throughout the year, or at least work initially started, would be the community investment program, the permissive tax policy, affordable housing, community gardens, and there's been a big focus on whether, again, just on the community garden, food security aspect, the big focus for 2024, which I hear you, can do better on in 2025, was dedicating a lot of staff time to those not-for-profit groups on supporting them in their initiatives, identifying gaps if we knew of land available in a private property, connecting that group with them to see if they can start a community garden on there and things like that. Internal policy alignment has also been a priority so that staff and council are equipped with consistent tools and expectations to carry out their roles. Each of these efforts support a broader culture of continuous improvement, where we're not just checking boxes, but we're striving to govern in a way that builds trust, improves service, and creates a space for meaningful community investment. Some of the community and economic development initiatives. We've formally now established 2 key advisory committees, the Community Ec Dev Committee and the Land Use Development Committee. These committees will help bring community voice directly into our planning and program development. With orientation complete, both committees are up and running, offering valuable feedback and ideas, even as we continue to balance limited staff capacity. On the land use side, the committees have been reviewing development applications and contributing to policy discussions. Shortly, their feedback will be heard on the draft official community plan engagement plan, and they'll continue to play a key role in that as that work advances. On the economic development side, we've reached a major milestone in the submission of our municipal and regional district tax application. This application, if successful, will establish a new funding stream and support tourism, destination development, and local business promotion. Early indications from the Ministry of Finance have been positive, and we're hopeful this will be a transformative tool for Sooke. And while we tackle big community initiatives or community-wide initiatives, that definitely take longer to be realized, it's important we not lose sight of the quick wins along the way. Our staff are striving to be flexible and adaptable to the needs of the community. For example, we're preparing to bring forward a draft business beautification program for community review. This pilot initiative will support local businesses in enhancing their storefronts and surrounding public spaces, fostering vibrancy, walkability, and stronger sense of place in our town center. We also heard from the community that we need better wayfinding and signage, as well as promoting waterfront access opportunities. All of these items reflected in our Parks and Trails Master Plan, so including the committee in the midpoint review of the work can help guide the next steps with implementation. And strategic capital projects, as I see, bear with me, there's been a lot going on. We are continuing to see strong momentum on key infrastructure projects, which are essential to supporting Sooke's growth, safety, and connectivity. There's renewed progress on the Community Health Center, and we continue while working closely with our partners to advance this long-standing strategic priority. While we're limited in what we can announce at this time, I want to reassure residents that this project remains very much on our radar and is a core deliverable of the District Council. Over at Raven Ridge, enhancements are nearly complete, and this is an exciting milestone. It also highlights an important shift that we're trying to recognize on a way more upfront, transparent way. From capital investment to operational responsibility. As we add new community assets, expectations for maintenance, programming, and care grow in parallel. So that's one thing that we're trying to do a better job of, is highlighting when these new assets are added, there's always an operating cost that goes along with them. So just to make sure that that connection isn't lost. It's a reminder that we may be complete on the strategic or capital side often marks the beginning of a new workload on the operational team. That's why today's check-ins are so important, and what's critical to serve that service level planning is done hand in hand with the budget discussions. On the major capital milestones as well, there's one of our culverts there. That's why we need asset management. We've reached several milestones in our core infrastructure portfolio, critical foundations that support Sooke's growth, environmental protection, and long-term service resilience. The wastewater system expansion is now complete, representing a key investment that boosts capacity, supports development, and safeguards the marine environment. Closely tied to this is the West Coast Road Force Main project that is just nearing completion. This project as well strengthens system reliability, adds redundancy, and helps future-proof our network. This particularly meaningful achievement is our partnership with the Sooke Nation through the municipal type service agreement. IR2 is now connected to the district's wastewater plant. This connection is more than a technical success. It reflects a shared commitment to environmental protection, reconciliation and action, and a regional collaboration that benefits the broader community. We're also advancing stormwater planning. This work is essential to managing runoff, reducing flood risk, and improving water quality, especially as we experience more extreme weather events and growth pressures. By aligning stormwater and wastewater planning, we take a systems-based approach, ensuring coordinated, cost-effective investment and better infrastructure performance. Call volumes and operational pressures. Just a few more slides here. As I've just shared, the district is making progress on the infrastructure delivery and long-term planning, but it's also important to zoom in on the day-to-day realities because as we deliver these large-scale projects, we're also managing a steady rise in calls for service and operational demands. This next section will provide a quick snapshot of what that looks like and how we're working to balance it all. We can't lose sight of the dual pressures of the organization is under. Not only are we delivering a large-scale infrastructure and policy updates, but we're also responding to everyday needs of residents. From bylaw enforcement to parks maintenance, from development services to emergency response, our teams are continuously adapting to meet growing and evolving service demands. These are the things residents experience most directly, so keeping baseline services consistent while advancing long-term goals is a constant balancing act. And the next couple slides, I'll just share some of the fun stats and facts in here. 223,000 emails sent. To give you a sense of the day-to-day reality, on average, staff are managing 900 emails and 65 phone calls each day. Just on average, obviously not per person here, but on average. While some interactions are quick, just a minute or two, many are much longer. A single inquiry may take 15 to 20 minutes or significantly more, especially when follow-up, internal coordination, or research is involved. It doesn't take long to see how quickly staff time can get used up simply communicating and supporting the public. And this number doesn't include in-person conversations at reception, site visits, or meetings. Each of these interactions represent a resident or client needing something, a question answered, a concern addressed, and a service request responded to. Just a few more stats on the bylaw services. This chart illustrates we've seen a strong rise in bylaw service requests over the past several years, more than tripling since 2017. In just the past year alone, calls increased from 740 to over 1,000, a 46% increase. This trend reflects more than just population growth. It's speaking to an evolving community expectations, increased public awareness of bylaws, and greater demands for local enforcement and education around community standards. Recognizing these pressures, we added another position to the bylaw team, bringing our staffing complement to 3, which also includes business licensing, which saw a 6.9% growth last year. So that as well has been added additional pressures to that department. And this data reinforces the decision on increasing staffing, highlighting that it was both timely and necessary. With the added capacity, we're better equipped to respond to concerns, investigate issues, and educate the public. This enhances not only compliance, but also livability and safety across the community. While we've made progress, the trajectory here underscores a bigger picture. As the community grows, operational demands rise. This means we must continually evaluate our resourcing and service levels, in particular alongside budgeting and financial planning. And to this point, as I said to, I believe Councillor Pearson earlier, bylaw complaint driven, we're asking a budget question this year to get information from the community on their thoughts and feelings on taking a more proactive bylaw enforcement approach. Fire rescue calls for service. This slide highlights the growth in demand for the fire rescue services in Sooke over this time. In 2024, calls reached just over 1,500, an 18% increase over the last year, and more than double what we saw in 2020 during the pandemic low. There was a dip in 2020 during the pandemic. And since then, the upward trend reflects not just return to normal activity, but also more complex dynamics, an aging population and more multi-unit dwellings. On the right, you'll see medical calls account for approximately 60% of total fire rescue call volumes. This has been consistent for both 2023 and 2024. However, this is about a 10% increase from 2022. As Sooke grows and evolves, the nature of emergency response changes. It's a reminder that service planning must go beyond population counts and take into account how our community lives and ages. This is a bit of a hard to read slide per se, but it's just a sample of where we're trying to go. To support everything we're doing, we're also upgrading how we work. This includes launching a new website later this year, creating the My City portal, which some people who've recently signed up for might be noticing that new feature we have. And rebuilding workflows and core systems. These efforts improve public access and streamline internal processes, helping us respond more effectively and efficiently. We've done an applications form overhaul with planning, building, and development services, which have been met favorable with favorable feedback, as I previously shared in a prior CAO report. After more work is completed in Tempest, we're working towards a more robust permit and development tracker. The sample on screen is from Saanich, who uses the same technology. You can see the filters on the left and a sample of when you click an application on the right. And in the top right image, you can see how the tasks progress and clearly displayed, as are the dates of when each milestone was completed. I'll note that when we talk about capacity and resources, Saanich does have a whole team working exclusively on this project, including an ongoing full-time team member dedicated just to configuration. So knowing that, hopefully it's helpful to understand why it's taking us a bit longer to get to the same place, but we are definitely working towards that and making more progress than ever before and achieving that. And on the bottom screen is a snippet of the landing page to the My City account, which was launched this year with this tax season. We've seen 170 people sign up so far, and we'll be launching more communications on this in the coming weeks. And we have a goal of hopefully having 500 people sign up before the end of the year. And provincial legislation and staffing realities. And if that wasn't already enough, we're also navigating new provincial legislation, which is placing added demands on our operations and city staff, and operations and staff capacity. Staff turnover had been a challenge, but we're making strong progress. We're filling vacant positions and celebrating staff who have been with us for 5, 10, and even 20 years this year. In response, we're improving internal systems and developing a long-term workforce plan to support sustainable service delivery. The workforce plan is about aligning staffing levels across the organization with the services residents expect, whether in planning and development, parks maintenance, engineering, or administrative areas such as communications and corporate services. It helps ensure we're resourced and finance. It helps ensure we're resourced to meet legislative requirements, deliver on council's strategic priorities, and retain skilled professionals we need to serve a growing community. The workforce plan will be brought forward alongside budget deliberations this fall. At that time, RCMP contract services will be reviewed separately, given the district's lens in that is required. And just a couple more slides here. Engagement and advocacy. Enhancing service levels and adding resources comes at a cost, which is why early community engagement is so important. For those here tonight and those listening online, you'll hear this message often in the weeks ahead. Please participate in this budget survey at letstalk.sooke.ca/budget. The survey is open until August 24th. We're listening and your involvement is truly appreciated. Council's advocacy efforts continue to play a key role in shaping service delivery. To support transparency and keep residents informed, we're developing a public dashboard that will highlight these efforts, including links to letters, responses, and outcomes. While council may speak more greatly to advocacy priorities, I want to again emphasize that the community health center remains a top of mind alongside Highway 14 and the broader issues of how we move to, from, and around Sooke. This includes applying for grants and forming partnerships such as those recently explained or described to the community with the BC Transit and the Wadhams Transit Exchange as a recent example. Council will also be submitting priority meeting requests to the UBCM this year later on in this agenda, and which again will help inform advocacy efforts through the years to come. And finally, in closing, I want to again acknowledge the incredible work of our team, 75 staff members delivering core services while advancing the strategic plan, and also acknowledge the community we serve, some of whose photos are on the screen. As we reflect on our progress, if there's anything you'd like to see reprioritized or added, I encourage you to connect with me, council, obviously, and the community. That said, the most effective venue to explore these ideas, especially where they involve resource impacts, is through our upcoming budget process. To support that, I'm recommending committee of the whole meeting this fall that would offer council a dedicated opportunity to discuss any adjustments to the priorities or potential new initiatives, with the added benefit of aligning those conversations with the What We Heard budget report. That way you'll have public input in hand as part of your decision making. And with that, I will leave that there, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you for giving me a bit more time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gray, for the presentation. And I just want to acknowledge all of your work as well as all the staff members who are behind all of this. So I'll open it up to council for any questions on the report we just received in presentation. Councillor St. Pierre.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. Lots of great work again. Keeps getting repeated, but why not? The thing that I'm most interested in seeing progress on seems to be gaining traction, and that's actually developing better cycling infrastructure for the community. Obviously, there's not a lot of cyclists, but that's because it's death on wheels to actually get on the roads. My understanding is that the Juan de Fuca Corridor project, the MRDT, the ACADEV is starting to recognize that cyclists basically can't quite get into Sooke because they might get killed on the bridge. And so we need to address that. That, you know, sweeping off the shoulders might be a low-hanging fruit and so on and so forth. I'm looking forward to seeing how that's actually going to present itself. Like, obviously, we'll have a committee of the whole where we can discuss strategic priorities, but I also know that we're going to be getting a report for the Juan de Fuca in terms of low-hanging fruit. And so I'm very excited at the idea that we might actually have more of an incentive to actually allow cyclists who basically show up with nothing on them but money to spend, to actually make it in alive. So that'll be good, and I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, no question in there. Okay, Councillor Pearson.
Yeah, I hope no biking people are listening who want to come to Sooke for fear of getting killed. Couple of things that stood out in there. You talked a little bit, well, in two places that I feel that bring us stress. Medical calls, 951 out of 15. That's a significant amount of our fire department that are, you know, they're attending, and thankfully somebody's attending. Like, and you know, I've had my parents on that, but that's a direct download from the province, and you know, that's something has to be taken notice of that. And that, you know, we've got UBCM coming up, and that you mentioned also in your report, Ms. Gray. Thank you for the report through the chair. Operations staffing due to provincial regulations, like increased provincial regulations. Are you specifically speaking to housing increase, housing demands, or? And I know there's probably lots in there, but could you elaborate a little bit for me?
I think partly through your worship to Councillor Pearson, I believe that's coming from the province dictated we had to have, like, for example, an emergency program manager. So I believe that's where that commentary is coming from, is there's been a couple, so we obviously didn't have capacity for someone else to just do this off the side of their desk. So that's where a position was created, as well as I believe the Fire Smart Coordinator position is grant funded and has other funding sources, but it was kind of demanded, and then that the district have supports in these certain areas, for two examples.
Yeah, and thank you for that clarity. It's important that when we're having a public discussion that we start bringing forward some of these cost pressures, because we don't, as you know, we've increased the taxes significantly in the last couple of years in Sooke, and some of those are in that report, and good report, but I think it's incumbent upon us to mention some of those things. Shout out to Nancy and Dino. I don't know what that means. Sorry. No, I have no more questions. I maybe think of a few in a minute. Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Bateman?
Well, I have no questions at this
Okay,
point.
so we'll
I'll-
wait for a
yeah.
comment when the motion's on the
Yeah.
floor. Counselor Beddoes, did I see your hand?
No, I have no questions. Again, I would have a comment, but I'll wait till it comes around. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I will read this out then, that council directs staff to schedule a committee of the whole meeting in fall 2025 to discuss any changes to priorities or new initiatives to support appropriate resource discussions alongside the 2026 budget process. So that is moved by Counselor Beddoes and seconded by Counselor St. Pierre. So over to you, Counselor Beddoes.
Yeah, thank you for that. Now I get the comment, and that's what I wanted to do all along. I concur with Councillor Pearson is the ball comes over to us now to make some sort of a point with the provincial government that our fire department is getting overextended on medical calls and among other things. We get dumped on and dumped on. But that report was wonderful. There's a lot of information in there. It was very clear, very understandable to a lay type person like myself. So I appreciate it very much. So I'll be happy to make that motion.
Counselor St. Pierre.
I'd just like to shout out to the work being done by staff at places like the night market and to encourage everyone to put the word out. You can actually have a chance to de facto spend the budget and figure out where you want your money to go, what you care about the most. Go to the night market, have some fun, have some food, put some dots on a board and let us know what you want. So just spread the word as much as you can, because that will actually inform our committee of the whole greatly, and it does.
Counselor Bateman.
Well, yeah, it's a lot, yeah, praise galore. It's a lot to take in. I think it's interesting for me to reflect back on this council formed in October 2022, and we went through a process that led us to this document, critical piece being the confirmation and hiring of you as our full-time CAO. And it's just wonderful to see it unfolding. You know, I think yeah, I could go on, but I think I'll just stop there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And I look forward to this committee of the whole meeting because yeah, that is the midterm correction. We'll have another year by that point to close out this strategic plan. And yeah.
It'll actually be past the midterm. It'll be like on the downhill. Yes. Counselor Pearson.
Yeah, just to, through the chair, thank you. Thank you for the report, and I too look forward to the fleshing out some of these discussions in the committee of the whole. There is one ton of information here, and you know we're going over it fairly quickly, and I'm looking forward to that. So thank you again to staff for, I think, encompassing our strategic direction very accurately. So thank you.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. I will now call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Ms. Gray. Okay, so that leads us to 9.3, 2025 Union of BC Municipalities meetings. So we had a discussion about this at our last regular meeting, and we had rescheduled it to today to receive a bit more time to reflect on this. And also you'll see in here, Counselor St. Pierre has also provided, I think, something that was missed. So we need to have a bit of a discussion here. I'm trying to think of the best way to approach this, or we could just read them out and vote on them one by one. It's just my initial thoughts here. So I'm just going to start with this just to get something rolling. As you well know, there are about 190 local governments that attend UBCM. And for cabinet meeting, we have 15 minutes. And that's your introduction, your pitch, and you're out. So some of these have a lot of bullets underneath them, and it's a lot to rattle off in 15 minutes. And that's why I'd suggested that on certain items, we request meetings outside of UBCM. We get more time and to free that time up for those local governments that are traveling a much greater distance than us. That has just been some feedback I've received from others over the years. And it's also the timing to get in and out. Typically, I'll just say that as I look at these, some of them, like where are they in our strat plan and where are we demonstrating that we are doing work on this? So I'm going to pick on the Minister of Transportation and Transit request, particularly around Highway 14 and the funding for Throop Road. Well, we know that an open house is happening at this moment for the Kiltassan area. We have in the past invited ministry staff to present to council at an open meeting so that the public has the benefit of understanding what that planning is. And thirdly, in terms of Throop Road, we aren't there yet. We are in the process of, we've applied for a federal grant. The design work is occurring. So to me, that is a next year meeting because we will know what the referendum question is. We will know whether or not we were successful on a grant, and we will have a design to share. Right now, we don't have any of those pieces. We haven't even voted on the question yet. So it seems premature. That's just, I'm saying is my opinion. Fund us for Throop Road. Okay, how much? Oh, we don't know. Have you applied for a grant? Yes. What was the outcome? We don't know. So when you look back, what are we there for? We're asking for something, we don't even know what the question is. So that seems to be next year for me. We had transit here recently, and we're aware of the work that's occurring at transit. My suggestion would be to invite, rather than pitching for this particular meeting for the Ministry of Transportation, is to request that staff invite ministry staff to present in an upcoming committee of the whole and to give an update here in council about what's happening. And then we can say, have you done the weeds? Can you wash the bridge? Like those operational things, unless Mr. Carter and his crew get an answer back to us in that way. That may be more effective. And then also, rather than a closed room where one of us has to then report out on what happened, the community has a benefit of learning and hearing about what actually is planned for the highway, and it's not through us filtered. So that's just my piece there. We are anticipating an outcome on Ministry of Health. We could have this as a request for the meeting, but cancel it if we receive. We know that there's a series of announcements coming, so this meeting may not be needed. In terms of the Minister of Housing, there's a lot of pieces in there, including the new one that, like to fit all of those 1, 2, 3 bullets plus Councillor St. Pierre's bullet in there is a lot in 15 minutes. And yet what I don't see in here is any of the advocacy on the impact to our fire services. We have a resolution going forward to UBCM on the downloading and the impact cost of e-com, for example, that will hit the floor hopefully. We have taken that step. We've explained the impact to our residents, hopefully, of what 3% on their tax bill is and why that is. And we're sharing that, okay, we're also now picking up the pieces through our fire service to deliver ambulance service. So that in here is missing, and that is something we should be bringing forward, and it's not here. So, and then in terms of the schools, it seems like nothing is happening because it wasn't announced in this past year's budget. I do have a meeting scheduled with school district staff. We'll be following up on that. So it's just, it would then be a scramble to put something together, and it should be items that we're working on effectively all the time. And that is what I'm not seeing, which is why I'm hesitant in asking for these meetings because I don't feel that we're prepared, aside from the one on the cost impact and the service delivery and the strain on our fire departments. Sometimes they have multiple medical calls and they're also dealing with fire calls, which is a lot. That is one to advocate for. And then in terms of the impact on McCullough, we have passed the permissive tax policy, which will then trigger a conversation later this year. So that almost seems like, okay, next year, once we know where council lands on that decision with the permissive tax, would say, okay, but that conversation and debate hasn't happened yet. So it just feels early to me on items that we don't have all the answers to. So I'll just leave it at that for now and see what you think about that. But a few other things, again, some things we could do is again, asking ministry staff to present. And then the other ones regarding, Island, Air Manor is once upon a time, we were having discussions with Air Manor because they were seeking approval for development permits. And that led to a conversation at council as to what was happening at Air Manor and the impact and why they needed our support. So I would be almost more inclined to invite Air Manor to present to council and to share what the current situation is, so we're more aware of that, and then pick that up as an advocate piece. And then also the public is aware of what's happening, because I'm hearing it's a 3-year wait now for residents. But I can't confirm that because it's just what I'm hearing in the community. So I don't want to say, oh, it's a 3-year wait when it actually isn't. I don't know that because it's just what I'm hearing on the ground through the community. And then the piece that Councillor St. Pierre brought forward, are we ready to ask for, like, that needs to go almost to a land use committee when you talk about year-round occupancy of RVs. Like, that should be vetted through the community first, if that's something that the community is prepared for and wants before we pitch it to the ministry. And on the other part, I don't understand what that is. So I know that you may be the spokesperson, but life happens. Any one of us should be interchangeable to attend this meeting and to know what to say. It just, yes, it's usually me as the spokesperson. If there's a conflict with meetings or I'm unavailable to go, someone else needs to be able to go. Typically, it would be the deputy manor. We would lean on deputy mayor, not manor, another counselor, but we should be all interchangeable. Any one of us should be prepared to be able to go in and hammer this point out. So it just seems that these things need to work and they need to align with our strategic plan as something that we want to advance to the ministry. So as you can see, I'm not in favor of really pursuing any of this because I think we have other avenues and things to do. I'll leave it at that. Thoughts from others? Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I understand, your worship, where you're coming from in this, but I think there is some things in here. I certainly wouldn't want to go with all these bullets. Just no way. We'd have just no time left to get. But I think what I'd like to do, and is I'd like to go through with these bullets and yay or nay them. It won't take us long, I don't think. But you know, when it comes to the Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs, I would like to talk to them about the impacts of social housing on municipal services, including the policing demands and related to McCullough Drennan House, because they did go to BC assessment and drop it down considerably. And where we were could possibly collect 240,000 in taxes, it was dropped down to about 86,000. And as you know, that doesn't even cover our policing costs for that building. So I would like us to meet with the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs and see if, certainly bring it to their attention that we're not happy when these BC housing bills come to our community and we have to put more services costs on the taxpayers. So I would like to see us do that bullet. The rest of those bullets can wait, as far as I'm concerned. It's an ongoing thing, but I think that's a very important one. I was very happy that staff tackled the basic issues about getting something from them, but it's still not enough. And I think the minister has to take some responsibility there. So I would very much still like to do that one. So I don't know whether I should go on, but
Okay, no, that's fair. And I spoke too long about this without a live motion. I've been thinking about it for some while. And having been through the meetings, I just wanted to open up just to get a
Yeah, no,
conversation.
good. And
But
that's
we
the
can
key.
go through them one
Yeah.
by one, but just be mindful
I'll
of
be
where they
interested in
are.
what the other councils
Yeah.
have to say on that, but I'd like to do each
Yeah.
bullet and say yay or nay. And we're with the idea that we're not going to go with all these bullets. I mean, I'm sorry, there's just not enough time to make an impact. So that's my recommendation, and I'll leave it up to some other comments.
Okay, just getting a process. Councillor Pearson.
I want you to take note of this. I fully agree with you. No, and I thought about it since last meeting. The minister and I'm not in disagreement with Councillor Beddoes. My point is that if we don't have a and I use a spearheaded ask or direction, I actually think that the costs that are associated with affordable housing or social housing is a UBCM issue. I don't feel it's like, I think if we get there we ask for it and say, oh, do you recognize all these costs? It's good for us to point it out, but I actually would prefer a motion on the floor at UBCM to say, UBCM should be advocating for all communities, not just Sooke. Like we go there, it feels like a Sooke ask. That downloading of cost is right across the province. And I think sometimes that gets lost because, I used Charlie Brown's mom or teacher or whatever it was last time. And I think like our asks in here are enormous. And I think we run the risk of, oh yeah, you're asking for that, you're asking for this, and you're asking for that. And I don't think I think they're so busy, not that they're not trying to do their job. I just think that they're, okay, and then who's next? Get your 15 minutes, they hustle you out of there in 13. I prefer this one with the Ministry of Housing really to craft some motions that we could potentially get support from the rest of UBCM. My opinion.
Counselor St. Pierre, then Bateman, and then we'll go through them, okay?
I also agree with honestly, most of what was said. The one place that I do have, kind of a stake in the game here is I do think that there are some things where we do have subject matter experts. So for example, I don't think anyone could actually step in terms of the community health center where you spearheaded most of the discussions, activities, coordination with doctors and so on and so forth. If you were not in the room, no one else could pick that up. Myself, I've actually been working on the Farm Hamlet projects for about 6 years and putting an enormous amount of work. I don't expect anyone else to have any understanding of it or be able to pick it up. And I don't see why they should. So at this point in time, we can discuss this when it comes up, but I do think that we do have subject matter experts. It is not the case that every counselor is interchangeable or interchangeable with the mayor for that.
Counselor Bateman?
Let's see. I did, as I said 2 weeks ago, I felt our meetings with various ministers, the Crown Corporation, those were a highlight for me. Us moving as a team into these meetings, making a very clear, basically we're introducing Sooke to these ministers, putting us on their radars. So when you speak of the Minister of Transportation and Transit, I agree, a committee of the whole with their representatives again, as we did back in April last year, would be fantastic. At the same time, getting in front of the minister and saying, okay, yes, this is early, but look what we've got in play here. We have a referendum, we have these grant applications. We want to know what you have in play to work with us. I mean, you're talking through our MOU about right turn lanes along Sooke Road. Where do you stand with that? So it's more of a two-way street. We're on the subject of improving our transportation network. We are taking significant steps. We need to let them know that and expect some quid pro quo on that particular subject. With the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs, I feel that is almost like we need to rebuild some relationships with the minister, given the ways in which we've responded rightfully to these Bill 44, et cetera. Is it worthwhile to sit down with the minister and say, okay, let's pass the peace pipe and work towards a solid working relationship? Ministry of Health. Anyway, I think probably the best step is to make a motion, and we'll go through these individually, I think you're suggesting. So I would move that staff be directed to pursue a meeting with the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs.
Okay,
If I may.
over to Ms. Bagnall.
I think where things got tricky in the last meeting is that council was considering the 3 separate topics under each ministry. So might I suggest going topic by topic and having council vote on each topic separately, as previously discussed in this conversation, would prevent some of the stickiness for amendments or removing topics if you don't agree with the bundle of three and you want one. So if you go one at a time, it would make for a more efficient process. As well, the bundle of the three before you was defeated at the last meeting. So addressing it by Seritim separately would be appropriate in order to move this item forward. And lastly, I would like to note that for each type of meeting with a minister or ministry, there's only three topics. And I've crafted the resolutions and the report to work hard to synthesize council's feedback into three topics. However, with Councillor St. Pierre's notice of motion, there is a fourth topic for consideration by council under the Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs. So I just wanted to note that before council chooses the three very shortly.
Okay, so let's see. So Counselor Bateman started a motion, and so what I'm hearing is that would be the first part of that motion, but then what we would be actually, it wasn't seconded, so it's not live. I'm just trying to understand what we would be doing here. So it would be, yeah, sorry, Ms. Bagnell, just what you've said has confused me because I'm reading what you provided in the report.
Absolutely. So under 1A in the report, so A would be the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs meeting. And under A, there's three bullet points, which are three separate topics. And what I might suggest is that council consider the topics separately because council may want to have the meeting with the minister on one of the topics, but not all three. So if council votes on each topic separately, then it would be streamlined. So what I would suggest is to consider 1A bullet point 1 as a motion, 1A bullet point 2 as a separate motion, and just go through the resolutions as presented.
Okay, because then we would add the appropriate ministry in after the fact. Really, I mean, the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs would be a preamble to all three of these bullets, four actually.
That's correct. I would reflect the minutes to capture the entire motion. However, at the time of crafting this report, I followed a last year's conversation, which bundled them, and it seemed to work well for council. However, I do think that council at this time wants to take a more granular approach to the topics. So what I would suggest is considering each topic separately for each minister request.
Okay. Go ahead, Counselor St. Pierre. Yeah, we'll just get his question and then we'll recess. Thank you for the reminder. Go ahead, Counselor.
I was wondering if, following what Ms. Bagnell was saying, would we be looking for a mover for specific motions then to see if we actually get a seconder, or are we going through each one in turn?
Council, what I'm hearing would like to go through each one in turn.
Okay. Because I think we could do the other as well if there was an appetite.
We'll just go through them. Okay. At this point, though, we will call for a 10-minute health break. So currently it's 7:32. We will recess until 7:43. Just because I don't know how many minutes we're into the two. Thank you. Okay. Welcome back, everyone. We will now go back into our report. Thank you. And we will work our way through these. We've decided to go through them bullet by bullet. So the first one here then is to request the meeting to discuss the impacts of social housing on municipal services, including policing demands related to Mikola Drennan housing. Is there a mover for that? That's moved by Councillor Beddoes. Is there a seconder?
All second.
Seconded.
Discussion.
Seconded by Councillor Pearson for discussion. So go ahead, Councillor Beddoes, to motivate.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Anyways, we've had quite a go around, but as you know, the government has gone back to BC assessment and dropped their assessment, so they possibly pay even less taxes. And the taxes they're paying do not even cover the policing costs that we have for that development. And I would just like to bring it to the government's attention that is another impact on the citizens of Sooke, and that if they could possibly do a subsidy for any of the BC housing buildings in the Sooke area. And I think that's what the people of Sooke want. That we hit them with a big tax increase, as was mentioned earlier, and that's one way of recouping some of those taxes. We got to pay those policemen, and right now the police costs for that building outweighs whatever we can get in taxes. So I think that's the one that we need to bring to their attention, regardless of whether they bring it to UBCM or not. I think when someone does bring it to UBCM, that's even better. But I think something needs to be said, and I'd be willing to lead that one if need be. So that's my motivation. Thank you.
Councillor Pearson is the seconder.
And as Ellie Mina taught us, second emotion, always, even if you have to speak against it. I'm not necessarily speaking against it in principle. I'm speaking against it because I think that we will get lost in the foray of affordable housing across the province. I think that I believe it is a UBCM motion. And let UBCM advocate for all communities, because my fear is it'll get lost. Councillor Beddoes' point is correct. We can make a point and say, you know what, you've downloaded these costs on us, but until there's a change in that structure, we're going to suffer the same as, and I don't want to use the word suffer. It's going to be universally applied across the province. Assessing Hummingbird Place at $1 and the land at $1. That's not a level playing field for us as a municipality, but they're doing it across the province, and they're doing it to increase housing stock. So I understand their need, but there also has to be recognition of those costs associated with that.
Councillor St. Pierre.
Yeah, I feel like, yes, absolutely. I also think that there's a place there where our sergeant was telling us that we have, for example, perhaps a few people who we don't know exactly how McCullough was doing the screening, but we've got a few potentially very dangerous individuals that are putting other people at risk and also increasing costs, but also creating real risks and real safety concerns for, single moms and so on and so forth. I don't think that's something that the minister can address, but I think that we need to get in touch with Nicola and find out, what's their screening looking like and what's that going to look like. So in some ways, what I'd like to do is to follow up firstly with Nicola. And one of the reasons that I'd like to do that is because we might find out more and be able to avoid this in the future and potentially, mitigate these risks. The other thing is that I think that we should probably be looking ideally at one single ask of any minister, or potentially, I think we have to be focused. And I guess I would love to know from staff where we're at in terms of sewer expansion and whether or not there's any need for support from the minister on something like that, a big ticket item like that. Like, what is it exactly that only the minister can do would be my question. So there you go. And I don't think this is necessarily an only the minister can do thing, although I do think it needs to be addressed.
Okay, you're off the motion, but that's okay. Any comments, Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, I'd agree that this is something we need to discuss with McCullough and again with the staff sergeant. And because this is an evolving matter, and I would perhaps this would be for next year's consideration, if indeed it evolves.
Okay, so I hear what everyone is saying. However, a similar conversation occurred when the Hope Center was built. It was just a thrift store once upon a time. And then the Hope Center was approved and constructed back in, I think, 2012. And we know that sometimes there is a heavy demand on policing to address. So where I'm uncomfortable is naming and singling out McCullough Housing, when over the decades, there's been issues at different places throughout our community. The flip side is we have safe housing and we had nothing. We had people living in very vulnerable situations in dilapidated houses, abandoned vehicles, in rough corners under tarps and tents. And I read headlines of people dying underneath the bridge. So now we actually have housing, and we didn't contribute any land into either. These were nonprofits that came together. The province acquired the land and built the housing, of which we openly approved. So, and it was said that as you bring in more density, you have higher call volume. Not everywhere is the case, but certainly we do somewhere. So I would say from what we have sort of heard, it would be, I agree with St. Pierre, Councillor St. Pierre, and that let's follow up with McCullough just to understand a bit more about that, but we can easily reach out and request that meeting, and not through UBCM. I don't feel this is something to bring to this particular ministry, and rather in some of the forums, we may hear more of the challenges together. And it goes back to the property taxation framework, which is an ancient relic. It was adopted prior to Canada even. Like, it came in under the reign of Queen Victoria when we were a colony, and it continues to be the structure that we use. And we're dealing with all the modern challenges of today, which is an ongoing UBCM, FCM ask on local government financing. That is the bigger problem here in terms of because we are impacting the police, being impacted with a growing community. So I'm not in support of this, and I don't want to pick on one particular entity that's trying to do a lot when there are others. The same conversation happened with Knox Vision Society when they came before council. That was the feedback in the community. It's the same thing with any high density that occurred anywhere. So why this one this time? Councillor St. Pierre?
I'd like to suggest that, at least for me, my biggest concern is that when we were looking at this particular project and approving it, we clearly asked, is this going to be space for Sooke residents, or are we essentially going to be bringing in problems from outside? And my sense is that though we were, given soothing noises at the time, at this point in time, we now have some potentially dangerous people from very much outside the community that have been brought in.
Can I request a recess? Can I request a 1-minute recess, please?
Sure.
Oops. Doing something dangerous, am I?
Okay, so thank you for that clarity. Technical challenge. So I'm going to call the question on this one. All those in favor, please? Counselor,
Oh, sorry.
I don't want it counted. I want it counted.
do that again. All those in favor is Counselor Beddoes, and opposed is everyone else. That fails. We'll move on to the next one. Housing Supply Act implementation in Sooke, including timeline for housing targets and implications of the provincial housing advisor appointment. Counselor Pearson is moving that. Thank you.
No, I'd like to make a motion that we don't consider this.
Okay, well, we agreed to go through them bullet by bullet, so
Well, I'm
let me just stick to the process.
Might not be a motion.
No, so is
I'll move.
anyone moving? Counselor Bateman is moving this one. Is there a seconder?
Well, yeah,
Not even for discussion.
that's not even for discussion. All right.
That has not been seconded, so that's not coming on for the floor. Number 3, we have infrastructure and community advocacy, including the rebuild of Sooke Elementary, safety improvements at John Muir Elementary School, sewer expansion across the Sooke River to Kaltassin with South First Nation. That's moved by Councillor St. Pierre. Is there a seconded by Beddoes? Go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
I would almost want to just move the sewer expansion itself. Feels like the schools are actually, Ministry of Education. I would like to be able to speak to the minister directly about support for the sewer expansion. And I would like, ideally before doing that, to know from staff whether or not that kind of support and that kind of advocacy work would be useful.
Okay, so are you looking to amend it to remove the first 2 items?
Yes.
Okay, so the first 2 around the schools would be removed. And you're focusing on this. Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. He's proposed an amendment. Is there a seconder to the amendment? That's, okay, the amendment has been approved to strike that through. On the amendment.
I think that it's preferable that we have a strong focus in terms of, fiscal asks. I think the sewer expansion is actually extremely important to the community in lots of ways, in terms of what actually the ministry seems to want, which is more housing. It's hard to put more housing without the sewer expansion. So I think we got a good sort of line on that. I think the schools is actually Ministry of Education, so I don't know that we should bring it up to the Ministry of Housing and Infrastructure. So that's that.
Okay, on the amendment, Councillor Bateman.
Yes, so I did make that recommendation based on the fact that we were being asked to recommend just each one of us, a single minister recommendation. And I felt that this was an opportunity to present a more omnibus look at Sooke and its issues. However, based on the previous conversation 2 weeks ago, I am quite content to remove those.
Okay, so that's the amendment. So we're going to vote on the amendment first. Is there anything further on the amendment? I would just agree that that's a Minister of Education ask, and through the coming year, through meetings with SD 62, we can get a more formalized advocacy position together for next year, if not sooner. So I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. So now on the main amended motion, anything from members of council? Councillor St. Pierre. Councillor Pearson.
Like, I'm not in favor of this. We have a letter that we received from, was it Minister Kang? Talked about the sewer extension and things. I think there's more work to be done on this, although it's important. It can get lost. It's an important part of the project, and it is important for us to be considering that across there to support Sauk Nation. However, I think there's a lot of complications based on that letter that we received back from the Minister of Municipal Affairs last year. I think it's going to, without us doing a bunch of background work that you talked about earlier and say we're ready for this project, I don't think that it's worth our time with the minister. That's my opinion.
Okay, Councillor Beddoes.
Being a motivator seconder, yeah, I would like to see us proceed with this. It's the right minister to talk to. They're asking for more housing, more housing, more housing. And for both the First Nations and ourselves, and the sewer expansion would tick those boxes. So I think it's a good one to bring up to them and see if there's some assistance there. They're banging on us to make all this housing. And as you know, when a sewer goes in, you have an opportunity to put in more housing. And then we could throw the environment in there too, because to me, that's more of the question than the housing. But I would support this. I think go and have a few words about that would be in our best interest.
Okay, Councillor Bateman, and then I'll go to St. Pierre.
Okay, and I have this one on my list as well, and it seems a critical need, like the highway, getting that sewer expansion. Again, it's getting in front of a minister and reiterating our fondest wishes and desires. Now, you did mention at the previous meeting whether the Sooke was still on side with this, given that the original arrangement discussions were with Chief Planis, and so that was a concern.
Councillor St. Pierre.
As previously mentioned, I support seeing the minister, but I would like to hear from staff first, whether or not that kind of actually, based on the letter from Minister Kang, where the progress might be, where the file is sitting, whether or not the South are still wanting this to move forward, which I think they probably would because it's an environmental concern. It affects their food security, it affects traditional places where food was harvested. So I can't see that necessarily changing, but I don't know, and it's worth checking. I do think that I would like to meet with the minister for this particular reason, but I do agree with what Councillor Pearson was saying. I would like to know whether or not it's actually the right time to make this ask and to approach.
Okay.
And for this, I would like to hear from staff.
I'll ask staff if they can provide a response.
Through your worship, I'll kind of start and then probably just turn over Mr. Carter, who might know a bit more specifics. So as far as from the staff perspective, as the community and residents in Kaltassen learned when we did the engagement initially on this, is a significant grant would be required in order to even make this even close to viable for the people in that area. So since we got notice that we weren't successful in that grant, I don't believe another applicable grant stream has come up that we've been applying for. So as far as from a staff perspective, we haven't done a lot more work on this. I believe the Sooke may be entertaining something on their own to look into that, but that is very early days and I'm not really sure of the specifics of that and would be premature, I think, at this stage to speak to that. Or to my knowledge, I don't believe they're at the we need support advocating to the minister for this initiative either. I'll just see if Mr. Carter has anything to add.
Yeah, thank you. Through your worship to council, I agree with Ms. Gray on this. The sewer expansion for Sooke has always been important for the needs for their community as well as their economic development. We looked at an opportunity because as far as the district's needs for that expansion, it was the two primary focuses of the district's liquid waste management plan to pull the Kaltassen area and the Whip and Spit area off of septic because of the environmental degradation it was doing to the harbor. In terms of development, the sewer expansion, and it was 100% not the intent of the grant. If it was to focus on development, it again would not have been successful with the grant. So in terms of Sooke's priority, I don't believe it is the direction of the OCP to focus development over on that side of the bridge. It would be more focusing on the town center. We looked at it as an opportunity to partner with Sooke on a grant application that became available for environmental purposes. However, we were not successful with the grant at that time. As Ms. Gray alluded to, both the projects are designed. If a grant came up that was applicable for those projects, it would not be to focus on increasing development on that side of the bridge. It would be focused on basically getting that side of the bridge service to pull the septics off of the harbor. Like I said, both projects are designed. If a grant opportunity came up, we could make the grant opportunity for such a project, but it would still have to be heavily funded by the service area. And even if successful with the grant, the expansion of that service area would either have to be mandated by council or would have to be voted on by the residents in that area for a service area expansion. So I agree with Ms. Gray's view on it is not a high priority at a ministerial level.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. And yeah, I feel that we have more work to do on this and it would be something to regroup. And I think it may be the start would be when we're there and we relook at our priorities, that this come forward at a future date and not this particular year. So it's been moved and seconded though, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Councillor Beddoes is in favor. Anyone opposed? That would be everyone else, so that motion is defeated. Okay. We're going to move on to the next section, which is B, Minister of Transportation and Transit. So this would be introduction of Sooke's top transportation priorities, including advocacy support with BC Transit and submission of related district correspondence. Is someone moving that? And I see new movement. That's not going anywhere. The next one would be future improvements to Highway 14. That's moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Beddoes. So you have the floor, Councillor Bateman.
Well, as I've said earlier, this is a critical matter for us. It's important to highlight the preliminary steps we're taking to deal with traffic issues within the municipality, and we need to know. And I think it's part of that referendum question next year will be, can the ministry show that it too is stepping up and doing its necessary part to improve our traffic issues?
Okay, Councillor Beddoes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, further to that is I understand that MOTT gave us some money to engineer a third lane up from the bridge to Charters. And to me, that would almost do the same effect as having the through road extension. So again, on what Councillor Bateman says, I think it'd be imperative that we push that third lane. It's engineered, shovel ready. I'm not sure what the cost would be, but that would go a long way to alleviate the traffic. When we had Charters Road closed down, we sort of deduced with that 15% of the traffic was going down Charters Road, but they still have to get through off the bridge, past the traffic light, and then up the hill. And my observation is if we had two lanes going up the hill, that would push a number of more cars through each traffic light rotation and make a big impact on the driving on Highway 14, which is the #1 complaints we've had in these last 2 years is about that damn Highway 14. So I would like very much for us to push them on this item, since they did ask us to engineer it. Well, okay, now it's over to you. We're going to put the through pro as a referendum, and there's no guarantee it's going to pass. It's a lot of money. And this would be a really nice stopgap. It would save us 10 years in my estimation, not that I'm an engineer or planner, but I think we should push for that. They've recognized that it's something that can be done, and I think it can be done fairly inexpensively. I mean, it'll be millions, but it certainly hell isn't going to be 30 million or 40 million. So I'd like to see us carry through with that.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
this is another place where I'd like to know from staff where we sit, because I know there's a lot of work happening staff to staff in terms of MOTT and the work on that particular stretch of road. I'd like to know whether or not there's indications that the ministry is already planning on doing that work, because I might be naive, but I thought that was actually the case. So I don't know if we need to push for something that might already be happening, but I'd like to just have some clarity on that.
Okay, let's just pause there and see if we can get any answers from staff.
Thank you through your worship to Councillor St. Pierre. So in terms of the work on the highway, it was not the ministry that drove that work for that design. It was myself and my staff requesting that money from the ministry to put a functional design in place for the long term. That design from the bridge to Church Road, as well as from Otter Point down to Whiff and Spit, they are at a functional design stage. These designs are in place for the purpose of facilitating and forming part of a new MOU that would be established between the district as well as the Ministry of Transportation and Transit. This would inform all our development referrals as well as the ministry for any development that occurred on the highway. In terms of specifically the functional design from the bridge to Church Road, there's 3 short-term projects that are favorable that would come prior to that whole road being considered as a project. One, which is slated in our financial plan for consideration next year, and it would have to be half funded by the ministry, would be the upgrades to Charters Road and Highway 14, which would include a westbound north turn lane onto Charters. And then 2 other small projects, which I have requests in for the ministry to provide funding to district engineering staff so we can complete the final designs on these elements. So they would be shelf-ready projects, would be for a turn lane on Church Road, as well as an extended turn lane on Phillips Road. Essentially, the turn lanes will have a small impact to help the traffic. The overall bus lane would be a longer term vision. It would not address the traffic problems or the congestion that's being experienced on the highway because it would be solely for the purpose of putting buses straight through and accommodating the right-hand turns onto Phillips Road, onto Charters Road, and onto Church Road. Those projects, like I said, are being put forward as requests to the ministry to provide funding so we can bring them to final design for those small elements. If those small elements were constructed over the next few years, they will help a small portion of the traffic, but they will not have the overall largest impact. And if those turn lanes are constructed, that's why I've put a design in place on the highway for the bus lane all the way through, because the bus lane could be constructed at a later date if it was determined a higher need to get the buses in and out of Sooke specifically.
Thank you.
So just a follow-up to that, though, is that the work that you're doing does it then allow for the transit? Because right now at Phillips, the bus can pull off the road, but going between that particular stop and Church Road, the bus just stops in traffic. So with the work that you're doing, does that include the bus being able to pull over like a transit stop at least to be out of the travel lane?
Yes, to your worship, it does at the Charters intersection. The stop that is on the west side of the intersection would then be off of the travel lane going straight through. The biggest push from my perspective for the ministry would be to push going forward with the turn lane projects on Highway 14, which they are aware of at a high level, to get them to try and proceed with those projects as fast as possible.
So I think Councillor St. Pierre's question, though, is would it be advantageous for us to push this to the minister directly?
It would be advantageous to push it to the ministry for the highway support for improvement projects along Highway 14 in alignment with the designs, yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, that was your follow-up? Okay, all right. Any clarity on this one? I'll call the question then. All those in favor? And any opposed? None opposed. That one carries unanimously. So there's one meeting request. The second part with that would be funding for Throop Road. Councillor St. Pierre is moving that. Is there a seconder? Seconded for discussion. So on the floor is Councillor St. Pierre.
Okay, and again, my understanding from Mr. Carter was that this is not necessarily something to push on at this time, but I would like that to be confirmed and clarified. Through your worship to staff.
Okay, we have the first part cleared, so is this something to raise at this time?
Through your worship to council, for the ministry to fund the Throop Road connector, I have been provided firsthand from information from the ministry that it is not possible for ministries to fund district projects on district roads, even though the benefits of those projects may prove out to have residual benefits to the highway. So in my opinion, I do not believe this would be an important point to push to a minister level. So only funding that the ministry can provide to district and municipal roads is through their grant program, which we have been successful in multiple years now for $500,000 contributions towards components and active transportation components specifically for our road projects.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gray?
Just to add on to what Mr. Carter's saying and maybe a slightly different spin on it, where I could see the value of this is I had requested a letter of support from Minister Calon for the Throop grants, which I have not received back yet. So as far as from an advocacy angle, as far as supporting the significant grants we have in play right now for support, I think that there could be benefit for that conversation, as well as there's a couple other grants we're going to be applying for throughout this year that allow stacking opportunities. So to me, I appreciate what Mr. Carter's saying about while they can't directly fund the Throop connector, they can definitely support us in other ways. So that potentially is an option that council will be looking for support on through letters of support for our grant applications.
And I agree with Ms. Gray 100% on that. My comment was specific towards advocating for the ministry to fund the project, but 100% to advocate to push support for our funding applications, which we have made 2 under the ATF and the CHIF fund, which have stacking opportunities to fund the connector project. And the third opportunity Ms. Gray alluded to, we'll be bringing forward for council consideration in the fall, would be for another large project application that would provide a triple stacking grant opportunity for the connector project.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that there are actually grants where a letter of support from the minister could be potentially useful to us. I guess my further question to your worship to staff is whether or not a package could be prepared for a ministerial meeting that would outline, what this would entail.
Through your worship, yes, that's normally what we would do, is prepare a package of information for each of these meetings and leave behind brochures we've done before. And absolutely, if this is supported by council, we can definitely have information available for that.
Yeah, there will be an opportunity, I think, in that timing and in the notes to say, we are advancing this work. These are the things that we have done. We have requested a support letter. Would you, we can add that. I don't feel we need to add that as a motion. It would just be part of the other work we're doing into Highway 14. We can share the work that we're doing as a community. And our MLA has provided a support letter, even though the Minister of Housing has not. So I'm aware of that. Okay. All right, so I will call a question on this one then. All those in favor? Opposed? We're opposed. Councillor Pearson and myself are opposed because I heard that advocacy for funding for Throop Road was not an ask. So that's what you voted in favor of. So it carries, but I'm confused. Because that's what was on the floor, was funding for Throop Road, and we've heard that that is not something that we would be eligible for, but you still want to ask for that.
Yeah, I misunderstood the motion got out. Yeah, me too.
Okay, so I'm going to ask our corporate officer to,
What I might suggest is that the mayor use their powers of reconsideration to just put the motion back on the table, and then we would look for an amendment at that time and we can tweak it before council moves forward.
okay, so I'm using that power to have this motion reconsidered because, and for those that are following the bouncing ball of our meeting, there was we need a bit more clarity on this. So we are reconsidering this motion. It's back forward, and I'm going to ask that it be amended in that we look for support, grant, letters of support
As we are.
for our grant applications. For the throat connector, yeah. Okay, so this is back on the floor, so I need someone to move that amendment, please. Moved by Bateman, seconded by Beddoes. Counselor Bateman.
Well, that says what we were seeking.
Okay, Counselor Beddoes, anything? We're good. Everyone's clear now. Okay, so on the amendment, please, all those in favor? That's carried unanimously. So now on the main motion as it's amended. So we will be advocating for support for the Throop Road. We can give a brief update about where we're at. Good? Okay, so that's, yeah, it's already been, good. Okay. All right, I'll call the question on the amended motion. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Okay. Thank you. Ministry of Health, discussion on Community Health Center and request for an update. On this one, I think it would be depending on what we hear sooner. So we can have this, the ministry is obviously very busy. We'll put this request forward, but I suspect we may, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. So discussion on Community Health Center and request for an update. If we can move that. Okay, moved by Counselor Bateman. Is there a seconder? Go ahead. Seconded by St. Pierre. Go ahead, Counselor Bateman.
Well, I think you were just saying that it would be, it's worthwhile to get this in the queue if we do hear something from the ministry
Well, with
prior to the meeting,
Yes.
then we can withdraw. So that would be my comment on that. I would like to add a couple of items to this.
Okay, but that will be, those are all separate bullets. We're doing one at a
We're
time.
just doing one at a time. So that's my comment.
Okay. Anything, Counselor St. Pierre?
When this motion was previously brought up and discussed, there was talk of actually inviting Air Manor to discuss their needs and, potentially share what kind of advocacy they would want. At least that was
Yep.
my impression, but
That is not, we're going through these topic by
no, I
topic.
understand that, but I'm curious as to whether or not this is something we want to pursue without doing that first.
Yeah, so that'll be another topic we can discuss. Okay, so we're just dealing with topics. Okay, all those in favor, please? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Okay, I'm gonna go and stick in the theme of cabinet minister meetings. So because we have some additional motions that came in, so I'm going to deal with those while we're still in the cabinet meeting area. So this one here is the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs requests the development of a regulatory framework for the year-round occupancy of recreational vehicles in recognition of their increasing use as permanent residents across British Columbia. Councillor St. Pierre is moving that. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Bateman. Go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
Okay, so NIMO actually put forward a resolution last year that actually passed, and that is looking at actually having RVs become more available in terms of permanent residences. But we're still actually lacking for a regulatory framework, and it's not something that's in our jurisdiction. It's not something we can create ourselves. So it really should be up to the province to actually create a regulatory framework for what they already seem to be sort of allowing. At that point in time, for example, if you have units that are dangerous, unsafe, have issues, we actually would have some kind of mechanism for actually doing something, licensing, potentially having licensing or ways to actually get income for the district for new people that are actually living in these and that require services. Right now, what's going to happen is that we're going to end up with more people that are sort of semi-legal that actually are using service of the district, but there's no actual way for it to recoup costs because there's no actual framework from the province and we can't create it ourselves.
Councillor Bateman.
Well, I'm in support of this in that the Sooke Homelessness Coalition a couple of years ago created a working paper that we presented to the Premier at the time and later presented to MLA Parmar. And it did recognize, because we had brought this issue to council, and there was a discussion, and we learned about the various hurdles and barriers to this. So I think it's worth pursuing this with the minister. I
Okay.
could say more.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So process wise, we have had no recent community discussion about this. We've heard about the impact on our bylaw services earlier today in the annual report, as well as the fire. We recently just defeated a discussion around an actual safe building. And so now I don't understand what we're doing here. I'm not prepared to go on this item to the minister without knowing that this is something that is in our official community plan that has a mandate from our community, given the conversations we've had earlier today. Anything from others? Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this one because, I know that a lot of the pitfalls of this, but again, I think this goes back to something that the UBCM should advocate as a group, saying, okay, the realization is that a lot of people are living in these RVs, and we do it from the UBCM perspective as opposed from our perspective, because I don't have a whole lot to go on. I wouldn't know what to even say to them there. I'm not so sure I could support this. I think this is something that comes under a UBCM resolution, and because it not just affects us, it is the whole province that is dealing with this problem. So I'm afraid that I can't support it on a ministerial visit.
Okay, go back to the mover, Councillor St. Pierre.
I quite agree with Councillor Beddoes that this should be a resolution, but we don't have time for resolution right now. And quite frankly, this is something that creates problems ongoing. I do know there are people that are living in RVs semi-legally, and they don't have the protection of the law. They're essentially unpersons, because if they try and complain about their landlord or any such thing, they have no legal recourse. We're actually creating a situation, or the province is allowing a situation to continue, where people are invisible, must maintain invisibility, are semi-legal, know it. This is all very fine and well to talk about, whether or not the community has stepped up. But the question is, do we want to step up to protect people that are at risk? And I think we should. And I think the ministry needs to know that it's their responsibility. I have brought it up previously with other ministers, and at that point in time, and I won't name names, I was told, well, don't look too closely. And I'm sorry, but that is not good enough when people are potentially at risk and being victimized and can't actually step out of that victim role because they are not legal.
Councillor Pearson.
Well, and all good things have good intents in the beginning. This is a huge bundle of unknowns, because you've got campsites where people can go in legally, go there if they can rent a spot. But if they go onto private property, you're expecting health and appropriate electrical connections. This is a really complex issue. It's not as simple. And I appreciate the sentiment that the mover has made, but it's way outside our wheelhouse, this one. It is way out. So I can't support it, because it goes down a road. It puts us in a decision-making role where we don't have any authority. And I feel a real big conflict there.
Okay, go ahead.
I think that Councillor Pearson is actually making my point for me. This is super complex. It's outside our wheelhouse. It's the responsibility of the province to provide us with tools so that we can keep people safe. It's not our problem. It's too complicated. We can't come up with legislation. We don't have the resources. We can't do it, and it's not in our jurisdiction. It's their problem.
No, I hear you, but I would rather see our property tax framework and the way municipalities are funded to deal with concerns on what is safe to code and built before we start opening to everything and we're under the same framework that then is dealing with the lack of everything. So I'm not, I just don't, I see your point, but I'm not in it. I'm very practical. This is not going to work. Counselor Bateman?
Yeah, I tend to agree as well now. I think it's interesting at AVIC, we heard from the Islands Trust, who are moving forward with a pilot project of some kind, right? So, and I think thinking further about this, taking this to the minister is premature. We either jump on UBCM motions that are already in process. I mean, the Sooke Homelessness Coalition, we came up with a so-called proposal, which was a matchmaking service that would have dealt with some of the issues you're raising, Councillor Pearson. However, yeah, I think we need to look at a different strategy for this.
Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Counselor St. Pierre is in favor. All opposed? That would be everyone else, so that fails. Okay. We'll move on to Minister of Agriculture and Food. To provide an update to the ministry on the progress and further development of the farm hamlet model into a farm complex / food hub model. Is someone prepared to move that? Councillor St. Pierre is moving. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Moved by Councillor Pearson. Go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
Okay, so this will also be I'll try and keep it very brief, but this will be an update for council at the same time. So the farm hamlet model was presented by Jack Anderson some years ago in terms of basically using CD zoning within an ALR property to basically restrict residential development to one small area.
Okay,
I'm trying to.
no, I need to understand why we're doing, because that is a lot of information to throw to tell us what it is. I want to know why you are asking for this meeting. And should it pass, then I would suspect
To
some
provide an
sort of
update to the
briefing.
ministry on the progress
Yes.
and further development of the farm hamlet model. That's the reason.
Okay, and where does this align with our strategic priorities?
Well, as one of our residents mentioned, potentially food security. Because right now our food security in Sooke is nil. In previous ministerial meetings, we were able to make a strong argument that because of our topography and because of the size of our properties, we can't actually farm effectively and have food security. The farm hamlet model was meant to actually provide solutions. The new model, based on working with ministry staff, ALC staff, and so on and so forth, and evolving, needs to be looked at again by the ministry and by ALC staff. But I don't have the resources or the time to work on it unless I actually have an idea that there's some appetite on the part of the ministry. So I would like to have a meeting with the minister to basically update and find out whether or not I should keep on putting time into this.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pearson.
I won't pretend that I understand it. I think food security is important because it is in our strat plan. I'm not sure that I understand the linkage between this and food security. I will trust my learned friend. I think more benefit could be somebody who's a specialist request a meeting with the minister one-on-one through our MLA or something along those lines. But UBCM, not sure if we're going to get time with the Minister of Agriculture. Well, maybe they don't have many people want to meet them. I don't know.
Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, so we did meet with the minister last year, and I believe the farm hamlet I missed that meeting, but the farm hamlet was discussed. It is very much in our sustainable growth and environmental stewardship section of the strat plan, promote local food security and cultural preservation with a focus on community and Indigenous gardens. It's also in council leadership and advocacy. There's a lot of council leadership and advocacy. My word, let me just say, we have so many of these things can be done at UBCM by the way we vote in those resolution sessions, by the way. We don't have to do this directly, but within community safety and well-being, support for food security in public spaces, work with the Ministry of Agriculture, and anyway, I won't quote it all. But that food hamlet project was something pretty unique and special that Sooke, through Councillor St. Pierre and Jack Anderson, these others, came up with in 2022 with CAO McInnes was very much involved in that. So I think it's worth keeping the minister, Lana Popham, who wasn't the minister at that time, in the loop on this important pilot project that can be scaled up all over the place and deal with some real issues related to young farmers getting onto the land and getting fallow farmland back into production.
Okay, Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, this, my first feeling was no, but since I heard some discussion and I certainly believe in a food hub, I'd be willing to go with Councillor St. Pierre. I think this is one of those ones that it has to be delivered by Councillor St. Pierre as opposed to the mayor, because he's certainly up to date on this stuff. But I don't see any harm in that if Councillor St. Pierre is willing to put himself out and do a brief, and I mentioned brief, I would be willing to support him on this. And so I just caution not to get long-winded because the eyes will roll pretty quick. So yeah, I'd be inclined to support Councillor St. Pierre in this, and not necessarily all of us have to go to that meeting, but I'd be more than happy to go with them.
Okay, and I have no problem with a counselor sort of being the spearhead on this. My issue is that the community is completely in the dark. We have no idea what you're doing. I would prefer, in an ideal world, that this would have been shared at a committee of the whole, one of the committee meetings. And then there's something that there's an awareness in the community and the district around what is actually being, what we're working on here in Sooke, and that would be something to celebrate. So at this time, it would be a handful of counselors advocating for something that the rest of the community doesn't know anything about. So that's why I would suggest let's hear about it in a presentation or something, and then request a follow-up meeting with the ministry to say, okay, we've hit this point and now we need support. Do we bring it to the next phase? And if it's something that cannot be openly shared in that way, then why are we pitching it to the ministry at all? Like, it should be like Highway 14, we get it. It's something the community is hearing about, and I don't deny that food security is important. So I'm on the fence, really, and that's why, because there hasn't been any conversation about it here at our table. Councillor Beddoes.
I'm just trying to think back. There has been conversation in that, we did go up into Port Alberni, a number of us with our economic development officer downstairs, about food hubs. And there was, my feeling, there was a good deal of people that I talked to that were in support of a food hub. That's why I'm asking that when Councillor St. Pierre, when he does that he doesn't want us just keep it simple. And the food hub was a wonderful idea. And I think the agricultural community that I've spoke to on it thought that it was a wonderful idea and good for entrepreneurs that are trying to do small scale products for a community food hub kitchen. And I think we had an explanation at this meeting exactly what they're all about. So I would like to support Councillor St.
Okay, so that was at a council meeting.
Yeah,
I missed a few, and that's the part I don't have any
Yeah.
background on. So to me, it's-
I gave a report when we went up there too. So.
Okay,
March 28th, 2022, council agenda, pages 91 to
oh my
210.
gosh. March,
So it's quite a substantial,
so 3 years ago.
the CRD, Guy Dauncey, farm folk, city folk were all involved.
Okay, well, good on you for having that memory from 3 years ago. Okay. Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
I don't want to shoot myself in the foot here because it looks like there's a fair amount of support around the table, but I do understand the mayor's point in terms of I have not reported out on the evolution of the model from where it was as presented by Jack Anderson. So that is true, and that is a fact. It was mentioned though at a meeting with Emily Lejeunesse and Lana Popham some weeks ago. or months ago at this point. We were meant to have a follow-up meeting, but honestly, it just didn't get scheduled, which is why I'm hoping to use the ministerial meetings to basically have that update and follow up, which I think Minister Popham is actually expecting. It's a continuation of work that's been in progress. If there are some pieces that I'd have to actually maybe discuss with our corporate officer in terms of, just opening it right up, because it also affects, there are pieces that I have to discuss with our corporate officer before bringing out the entire report into the public, but I
And
understand.
that's totally fair. It's just like, okay, like I know I've missed some meetings this year, but I watched a lot of them and read the minutes. So I'm like,
No.
what am I blanking on? Okay, it was 3 years ago. All right, I feel I get a pass for that. Okay.
I'd like also to mention the change in minister. There was a previous relationship with
Yes.
Mr. Popham, and then there wasn't really a relationship. There's a good chance of being able to pick the project up and get it moving again at this point because of the change in the minister. And that's another reason to actually meet with Minister Popham and provide her with an update on what's happened while she was not in that position.
Okay, all right. Fair. Okay, I'm gonna call the question on this. All those in favor? And none are opposed. Okay, so that one is carried unanimously. Okay. Okay, so we are moving back in, oh, there's another ministry one here, Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General. No, this one here is address rising costs associated with police administrative procedures for the retention and disclosure of evidence, and to advocate for legislative and procedural updates that reflect current technology and reduce financial burdens on local governments. Someone moving that?
I'll move that.
Councillor St. Pierre has moved it. Is there a seconder? Seconded for discussion.
Okay.
On the floor, Councillor St. Pierre.
Okay. I've spoken to some very experienced policing people, and my understanding at this point in time is that because of some changes in legislation that happened in the last, I think, 20 years, and because of changes in technology, essentially things like DNA reports and encryption on phones, the police are now in a position where, in order to retain the knife or the phone that is their evidence, they have to basically make the whole case before they have to make the case. And it's actually a huge amount of administrative work that doesn't actually advance a fair trial or any such thing, but is actually costing us because we pay for it. So what's happening at this point is that because changes in legislation and because of changes in technology, the procedures have not kept up, and we're paying the bill. My understanding from what the staff sergeant and other police officers have said is that about 80% of our costs are administrative. They don't put police officers in schools or on streets or stop drunk driving. They're just to actually stop defense lawyers from punching holes in a case and releasing people on a technicality. I'm hoping that we can actually bring this up with the Solicitor General. If this doesn't happen this time, I'm perfectly fine. I believe it's an important conversation because my rough estimate is that just the district is spending $1 to $2 million on this stuff. And that's ridiculous. That's like, 4 to 8 officers or who knows what, when we're trying to save money and putting in 60% tax increases. Meanwhile, this money is being, from what I could tell, absolutely wasted. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got to say.
Councillor Pearson?
I have nothing to add.
Okay, anything from anyone else? Councillor Bateman?
It sounds to me like a UBCM resolution.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I don't know which entity, but it just needs more work. And I don't know that it's true that things get just thrown out due to technicality. So there needs to be a bit more proof that that actually is the case and that there is an impact back there. And it may, yeah. Okay, I'm calling the question. All those in favor? And Councillor St. Pierre is in favor, and those opposed. And that would be everyone else. So sorry. Okay, in terms of my earlier comments around, you know, we have a resolution at UBCM and the like, I think following that outcome, then it would be more we have a resolution going forward. What was the debate like? And then what will the provincial response be? So that has to kind of come around. And the piece around local government financing is always a local government ask all the time. So I don't feel that while we raise that is actual work and we've heard about the impact on our fire, we already have an avenue of what we're doing with UBCM. It doesn't need to come to the ministry. Okay, going into, I think that covers off the ministerial section. So we're going to go into section 2, provincial government ministry meetings. And this would be where staff would be directed to pursue meeting with the following provincial government ministries. Oops, I'm reading the same thing. I'm sorry. I thought there was something about staffing. Bear with me for a second here too. Provincial government. Okay, no, we have that. Okay, so here we have the one on highway improvements we've done. Okay. It's in here. It's just, okay, there's a duplication here. Staff be directed to pursue a meeting with the following provincial agencies, commissions, and corporations. So that's that section. Regional health authorities, island health, expansion of a long-term independent living and complex care rooms via funding for a new wing at Air Manor. So that one's moved. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Pearson. Go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
Well, it's interesting. So I was at this Island Health info session on June 11th. You were at the CRD and you asked me to attend. And I did raise the subject of Air Manor, and I was told that there were 3 new long-term care facilities on Vancouver Island, were approved in 2023 and will open in 2028. So that includes the 306 beds at Royal Bay. And people in Sooke here at Air Manor, where there, last I heard, was a 2-year wait list, they're being told you'll need to get on the list for Royal Bay. So that's a 45 minutes there and 45 back. So this is Sooke families dealing in a awkward situation here. So they said, while there's 0 chance of funding for an expansion at this point, you need to go long game. So my feeling is we could meet with Island Health and say, how do we strategize here to A, explain the need as we explain to the seniors advocate, and also how do we strategize so that in 2030 perhaps we can get this kind of funding, so that by 2035 we'll double our number of beds. But I agree that Air Manor needs to be consulted on this. We can't go in champ because they're looking at, they have other options as well.
Okay, the
So-
seconder was Councillor Pearson.
Yes, with our good meeting with the seniors advocate, Dan Levitt, under his tutelage or suggestions, this is kind of the direction that he pointed us in. He didn't, make any promises, but he valued the land that Air Manor has. He valued what has already been done in Sooke through multiple agencies. So with that in mind, he felt that we would be good to start advocating for the long term, as Councillor Bateman said. So I'm not sure what that looks like because, again, Air Manor does have to be consulted in that process, and we don't want to go advocating for something so difficult kind of place.
Okay, so in the event that this passes, we do have some time, maybe over the summer, to reach out during the recess. Contrary to what I said earlier, I've learned that they are present in the age-friendly meetings of which a member of council attends. And so we are getting current data to inform our advocacy there. I think it's incredibly disheartening to expect Sooke residents to leave our community to go to Royal Bay or elsewhere. Yes, it's not far that it's in Colwood. However, you break up a family and you take a senior who has contributed, their doctor might be located in Sooke. So in the event that they need to see their local GP for anything, now they have to get transportation to come back into Sooke to get the care and attention that they need. They may have a familiarity with one of our pharmacies who knows their medications, and that makes a big difference, as well as other supports, whether it's family, local coffee shops, events. And having been in the role of elder care for quite some time, it is not easy to just go to another community and uprooting people. It's people need to be able to age out in their home community. If people are willing to go there, that's fine. But it may or may not work for the family unit. So I would agree with this one, and at least getting something in, following up with a letter, and then it sort of builds that advocacy file. And it's likely I have other materials that we can pull together on the work that we have done to support Air Manor. And this is something that the community is well aware of, and it's just heartbreaking, you know, the stories that I hear of what happens. So if you are 91 and you're told to wait 2 years, that is a long time. And to tell Sooke residents to expect nothing, like, what does that say? Like, the reality is, unfortunately, folks, we're all aging every single year, and there needs to be a sense of immediacy to this. And as I know it already, we have seniors living in the hospital because they cannot return home, or they have lost their space and have had a cognitive decline in the times where they've been abandoned and left alone in the hospital. And that is not a way to treat anyone. And in that way, you should not be living in the hospital. So anyway, I think I'm fully in support of this, and I'll stop talking because it's making me angry right now. Okay, I think enough said. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that one's carried unanimously. Okay. The next part of this is our MLA invitation. So that Dana Lajeunesse, member of the Legislative Assembly for Wanda Fuca Malahad, be invited to attend District of Sooke meetings at the 2025 UBCM convention. That's moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, very quickly. Back in 2023, I think it was, Ms. Gray and MLA Parmar joined us for those ministerial meetings, and it was very, very useful. And MLA Parmar was able to just represent his communities, basically. So yeah, I think former Councillor Lajeunesse would be very welcome.
Councillor St. Pierre? Yeah, no, I would agree, just so he's aware of what we're doing, and hopefully be that voice when it matters appropriately. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, we're getting some wins here. Let me just see here. I'm just going through this.
The last one is Counselor St. Pierre's notice of motion for the ALC. You'll see it just at the last resolution. We jumped a bit.
Okay, so this is the Agricultural Land Commission to provide an update to the ALC on the Farm Hamlet Initiative and its development into a farm complex food hub model, and to seek input on how the evolving model aligns with the ALC's mandate and how it could be improved. So it almost feels like a part two. So moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
So when I was working with the ministry and with the LC staff several years ago, they were both involved. The ministry was kind enough to basically put me in touch with the LC staff in order to actually inform the work that was happening. This is basically following up with them as well at the same time. I was recommended at the time to basically use the new legislation that's just been, finished, and to push it as far as it could go. That's what happened. This would be about reporting out to them, then also finding out, because they said that the new legislation was being much more permissive in terms of allowing more workers onto farms. I would like the opportunity to basically inform the new model with, okay, so what are they actually allowing at this point in time? how can we actually move this forward? Because there's no need to actually reinvent the wheel if they, in the last 2-3 years, got some perfectly good wheels. So this is an opportunity to basically update them and ideally to have them provide feedback.
Okay, Counselor Bateman?
Yeah, I'd agree. Interesting. I think last year it was the Agricultural Land Commission that the meeting was with, Jennifer Dyson, the ALC commissioner. So I think it would be great to update her on the progress to date and the evolving nature of this exciting project.
Yeah. Okay. I'll call the question then. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Okay.
Kind of the same one, but.
So that concludes that report. All right, we made it through that. Thank you, members of the public, for following along and staying with us here, as well as those online. We're going to go into 9.4, which is our 2024 Statement of Financial Information Report.
Thanks, Your Worship. The Statement of Financial Information is an annual report required by all BC local governments under the Financial Information Act to ensure transparency in public spending. The report today includes the audited financial statements. These are the same statements that are presented to Council in April that were provided and prepared in conjunction with the audit. They include the overview of the 2024 financial activity. And also the remuneration and expenses is included on this report. So this is payment to elected officials and employees earning over a set of, for employees that earn over 75,000 per year, and then all elected officials are also reported, although they don't earn that same amount. The figures reported as staff expenses include items such as travel expenses, memberships, tuition, relocation expenses for staff, registration, training, and conference fees. In addition, in the report, supplier payments are included. So this is a list of payments to vendors whose payments exceeded 25,000 in the year. The deadline to provide this report is June 30th, and it must be kept available for 3 years, typically on our website. In short, the SOFI report is our financial statements with added schedules that show how public money is spent. That concludes my summary of the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions on the report for our staff? I was just going to share an observation in case you are asked why my expenses are a bit lower than all of council's for the most part. There were two things. Last year, when we attended the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities on checkout, I was told I had enough loyalty points that would cover off my entire hotel stay and that they would expire in 30 days. So I used them all. And that's why that impact, because otherwise I had no other opportunity to use them. So save the taxpayers a bit of money. And secondly, as a life member now of the Union of BC Municipalities, my registration fee is waived. So that will change though. And I just, going forward though, when I'm no longer at this table, you would want to though have it reflect what it should be, because that is tied to me specifically for life. So, which means I'll see you at every convention. Regardless of what I'm doing, but that's why that's there. So, and then unfortunately, what I think should be a UBCM resolution in future years is some hotels charge more for accessible rooms. And that is a barrier to participation. And had I been more organized, would have actually submitted something like that for the Union of BC Municipalities or even FCM. It should be level at all abilities. Like, what kind of message does that send out? That's not a, I have a problem with that. So I just wanted to share those things. Okay. So the motion here is that the report from the Director of Financial Services regarding the 2024 Statement of Financial Information be received, and that the District of Sooke 2024 Statement of Financial Information be approved for submission to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and that the Mayor and Director of Financial Services be authorized to sign the Statement of Financial Information approval form. It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Any comments, Councillor?
Saying this too often, good work.
Thank you. Councillor Beddoes, no. Anything from anyone else? Okay, call the question. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so we're moving into notices of motions. So this are, just gonna look for. Oh, that's coming, the item received. Okay, notice of motion, the first one, 10.1, application of sewer use bylaw. So this came from Counselor Pearson at the last meeting. So Counselor Pearson is moving that council direct staff to prepare a report outlining the current application of sewer use bylaw 224 to food trucks and mobile food vendors, specifically regarding their connection to the sanitary sewer system, and to provide an overview of the associated regulations, classifications, and permitting considerations. So that's moved by Counselor St. Pierre. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Counselor Beddoes. So to motivate, go ahead.
Okay. We had a presentation at the last meeting, and there was a lot of information that was in the correspondence that came with it. Food trucks are part of a new culture, and they're across multiple municipalities. They the positive side is they offer opportunities for people who don't want to go into a restaurant and sit down. The downside is they do compete with bricks and mortar restaurants. So there's some conflict there. However, there's a reality part that food trucks are part of a new culture. And I think it's incumbent upon us to set the rules and guidelines so that people can actually make application to have a food truck in our community. Langford has a beautiful setup along Station Road. I went and looked at them the other night, and some of them are mobile, some of them are stationary, but they all appear to have sanitary sewer hookups, and I don't understand. Like, I'm just saying that they look like they have that. I don't know. I didn't phone Langford and ask them. Victoria does a food truck service where some of them are permanent in permanent locations. Some of them come and they have an area behind the museum, and they have a loyal following. There are some that are in containers, so there's a variety of it. I just think it's time for us to clarify, as opposed to, because they appear at the museum, they appear at different events, so they provide a valuable service to specific events. But then the application that we saw was for more of a permanent status, which is again different. So the point of my motion was to get clarity around it so that people can come in, make an application, follow the rules, and then they know what they have. So
Okay.
report from staff should clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Beddoes.
Yeah, I'll support not all of what Councillor Pearson said, but I guess for me, I need to know the dangers of food trucks going into our sewer system, and what other communities do for checks and balances, because this can't just be us. The argument about food trucks and what they do for the community, I'm not really getting into that. I'm more concerned about the sewer side of things. Is it safe to have food trucks dump their waste and possibly oils? So I need to know that, and I need to know what other communities are doing in that respect. I know they have sandy dumps, and I understand sandy dumps don't go directly into a sewer. There has to be some sort of treatment there. So the staff has the ability to check around. So I would like to hear a report. I'm not that thrilled about that particular sort of concern, but I think there needs to be some clarity. We can't just say no. There has to be a reason why it's no. And so I'll support that motion.
Counselor St. Pierre.
I think that food trucks do provide a useful service to the community, and we're already allowing food trucks. At this point in time, I'm just concerned or wanting to ensure that our existing processes in terms of hookups and so on and so forth aren't actually creating not just one person, but just in general undue delays and actually working contrary to our goals of economic development. I mean, we are trying to develop the economy. We want more attractions for tourists and so on and so forth. This is a part of it. If our process is, has redundancies or could be improved, then I think it's a good time to look at it. And so I support the report for that reason.
Counselor Bateman.
Yeah, I'll support the motion as well. I think it'll be good to see in a report the kind of correspondence on this particular file that we've received privately. And, there's some real strong rationales for why sewer use permit bylaw 224 was created and the impacts down at the wastewater treatment plant when food trucks pump their grease into the system. So I think it's great to get it out there. You've made a really good point about this change in culture. We love our food trucks, don't we? So the bylaw is very clear on procedures and process for these vehicles. But yeah, let's get a report.
Yeah, I'm in support of this because I would like to see the information and the impact on the system. And then look at it from there, because interestingly, we're hearing other municipalities limit food trucks because of the negative impact on brick and mortar businesses. And others focus on more the late night crowd. When the restaurants are closed, the food trucks come in to service a late night crowd, of which we don't have much of at this particular time in Sooke. And then I know that the festivals and markets and the like, where they roll in, they roll out, they don't stay there. So they're servicing that particular event, which is a bit different than something permanent, but it is useful to get information from staff. The delegation, I had trouble following because it seemed more like a service delivery issue and a complaint rather than anything else. So at least the motion is more clear on this, but we'll get the information and then go from there. And then I think we have committees that if there was to be a change, then any sort of change should be vetted through those applicable committees. So I'm speaking ahead of myself because we're just getting a report that could just be received for information, and that's that. I haven't seen it, so we'll go from there. Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor? And none opposed, that carried unanimously on the report. 10.2, Heat Dome Anniversary Sign-On Letter Request from CAPE, Canadian Physicians for the Environment, and Sierra Club BC. So Councillor St. Pierre has provided this notice that council received the letter from the Canadian Physicians for the Environment and Sierra Club BC and directs staff to add the District of Sooke to the letter in support of calling on Premier Eby and key ministers to follow through with their directives from the 2022 Extreme Heat Death Review Panel Report. So that's moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Pearson. So go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
So I see this very much as an equity issue. The contents of the report make it clear that basically communities that don't have canopies, newer neighborhoods, and basically places where people who don't have as much money and don't have air conditioning, they were the people that died. And so the report really addresses that. And I think that that's actually something that should be brought forward to the ministry and we should be aware of. So it's an equity piece. It's also, as is mentioned in the letters, these are preventable tragedies. People died for no particular reason. And this is a group of physicians that are bringing forward hard science to try and actually sort some of the stuff out. So I think it would probably be useful to have movement at a higher level.
Councillor Pearson.
Yes, as the environment changes and there's prediction for hotter weather coming at us each and every year, I think it goes along with emergency preparedness and support from physicians to preventative action. So I'll support the motion.
Yeah, I am in support of this, and I'm just thinking ahead though. It's more also what we plan to build into the future. And so there's a whole other conversation piece. It's one thing for us to sign a letter and to say this. However, when certain development comes forward, where's the tree canopy? What step code are you building to? Are you building for the future? Or are you building for yesterday? So I would just, yes, I'm fine to do this. There's another piece then, what are we going to do about it when we have that opportunity to do something? Are we going to say, no, build and do whatever you want, or build for the future? So I would just be mindful of that. It's one thing to sign a letter. it's also on us to follow through with the definitive action. Otherwise, it's hypocrisy and it means nothing. Counselor Bateman.
Yeah, just on those points, I think our new OCP does capture in the development permit guidelines and also in the action plan, a number of those key points. Wednesday is the 4th anniversary of the heat dome. 595 people died in that extreme heat event. And here is a request for urban forest, permeable land, and cooling green spaces. So, yeah, and I think those very things are within our new OCP. Yeah.
Excellent. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously as well. Okay, moving into section 11, we're into the bylaws. So the first one is on Clareview Street, and that is that council adopt the bylaw cited as zoning amendment bylaw number 923-600-110-2025. Moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. This is adoption, so I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. New business. So here I will turn to Councillor Beddoes. He has a notice of motion that will require waiving notice because of timing. So first off, I'll ask that council waive notice for this notice of motion. Moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Pearson. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously and it's on the screen now. And that is that, okay, I'll have you read it out, Councillor Beddoes.
That council provides sponsorship in the amount of $500 to the Sooke Minor Fastball Association for the provincial championship, July 4th and 6th, from the council contingency budget.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Pearson is seconding. Go ahead, Councillor Beddoes.
Yes, yesterday, our local young ladies, they're 15, 16, they won their championship and they're off to the provincials. I was actually there at the game in the concession, which is my other love. And they went to 7 innings overtime to beat Lake Hill. Which is something, eh? So it was just the yelling and screaming was interesting. But anyways, this is a local group and it costs a lot of money when they go to these provincials. They don't get a whole lot of help. So I'd like to see us supply them with $500.
Ms. Bagnall?
I've been advised by staff that there is funds in the sponsorship budget, which may be more appropriate if the mover and seconder are amendable to replace contingency budget with the sponsorship budget.
Actually, I thought that's where it was going to come from, but I saw the contingency. I thought there was another reason, but the sponsorship would be fine.
Okay, I'll consider that to be a friendly amendment. Councillor Pearson?
Yes, no problem.
Okay, and for clarity to those viewing, this would be the Sooke Storm U15 C team. So that is a dedicated group of 13 to 15-year-old softball players, and they will be competing in provincial champions. The decision to waive notice was that this comes July 4th to 6th. So this way council can avoid calling a special meeting. And they are very excited about this. And when teams do hit these achievements, we are very proud to sponsor them at this time. So I'm in support of this as well. Call the question. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. I know it catches us a bit. So maybe going forward, should members of council receive these, because sometimes it's like, what are we waiving notice on when I had to give notice and I had to wait, is just sending out an email to the group. So then at least people may have an opportunity just to read it in advance. So not to pick on you, Councillor Beddoes, but things do happen. I'm guilty of it too.
Just a point of clarification, actually, I instructed the person that sent it to my own personal email to send it to mayor and council.
Oh, okay.
It went into info mayor and it had to be processed by our front staff down front rather than come to us directly. So I was a little taken aback that it didn't have it in front of our
Okay.
correspondence. So
Yeah, no,
I was aware of it.
not picking on you, just
Oh, yes, I'm okay with it.
forward it along. Okay. So we are into correspondence requiring action. So the first one is the CREST 2024 annual report. Council received the correspondence for information. Moved by Counselor St. Pierre and seconded by Counselor Bateman. Any comments? Comments? Call the question. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. We have 13.2, some resident correspondence regarding our annual report here to receive for information. Moved by Counselor St. Pierre and seconded by Counselor Pearson. Thank you. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. District of Coldstream Modernization of Wastewater Regulations, UBCM resolutions. So this is where communities will often send it out to get some peer support ahead of UBCM. So motion to receive for information, moved by Counselor Pearson, seconded by St. Pierre. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. 13.4 Daphne Course drop-off yard waste requested by Counselor Bateman.
Okay, so this was a piece of fan mail to the district. Very pleased, Ms. Korths was very pleased with the yard waste drop-off, which happened over four Saturdays in May, and I too was very pleased with the program. So I was good to see that, and I wanted to ask through you to Chief Kennedy. This was a Fire Smart initiative. Do you have any early stats or understanding and the promise of a future such program? Thank you.
Through your worship to Councillor Bateman. Always happy to receive positive feedback from the public. Yes, this is a program that was funded through our recent Fire Smart grant. I think you mentioned that Madison, who's our Fire Smart coordinator, did a fantastic job and helped through with our park staff to make this a success. And we do look at it as a success. Lots of positive feedback from the public dropping off their yard waste. Everyone seemed to follow the rules we had established for the approved materials. And although we don't have really specific tonnage or weights of actual yard waste, 3 of the 4 days I know were super, super busy, and there's a lot. And we had to have that break in between those 4 days that we had established because of the long weekend really helped us out because we had to clear so much just to get ready for the next 2. So all in all, really positive feedback, and I think for sure this is something that we want to look at in the future.
It's good to hear. It's just interesting to note that it was back in 2015 that the Climate Change Action Committee recommended that we have a yard waste program. A full-time yard waste depot, in fact, was looked at by council 3 or 4 years ago, and it was cost prohibitive. But this particular program has, as you've just said, was particularly successful. So long time coming, and great to see. And so parks worker Jason Lowe in particular was just working so hard in that. Yeah, it's great work. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for the work on this. We used it as well, I think 3 of those days, but had to get somebody to help bring the stuff there. And just some feedback that I had heard is that some more commercial haulers were coming from out of community and taking advantage of this service. And so what is potentially dishonest about that is that they would have charged the disposal fee to that customer potentially, and then they could dispose of for free. And that means that they made, I think it's only $15 to bring and dispose of a load at Sooke soil. So multiply that out by however many households, they charge the resident for that and then ended up taking advantage of a free service. So, and are out of district. So I don't know how to manage that going forward. But I think it's just something to be mindful of, that someone always finds a way. And yeah, and so it's just something to think of, okay, going forward, it is meant to be for residents. And fire smarting, I don't know.
But they
Microphone.
have to pay someone to take it anyway.
I know, but if you do that, like I did, because I could not fit everything into my car, so I did pay for that, but I didn't have to pay the disposal fee. And then another time I wasn't ready. I'm like, I can't do this for the yard waste. So then that means I paid for the haul and I paid for the disposal fee. So in this case, and I don't know, maybe they're not. I don't know, but it's just something that this is meant to provide an avenue for people. And that was just some gossip, but it's just, we're talking about this, so. But great program, the fire smarting in general is just has us all looking at our yards a little bit differently. So thank you for your work on that. Okay, so motion to receive for information has been moved and seconded. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. The next one is the ORCBC, and I need to look up the acronym, New Guidebook Empowers Rural Communities Through Outdoor Recreation. So over to Councillor Bateman.
This is the Outdoor Recreation Association of British Columbia, and they've just produced a new report on if we're moving forward with the next motion, please. Yeah, there we go. Hi. Okay, and yeah, this is just something I think the Community Economic Development Committee should have a look at. We have a lot of mountain biking, hiking, the whole package, and it is a really strong community economic development generator. I don't know what the word is.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So your motion is that the Outdoor Recreation for Community and Economic Development Guidebook be forwarded to the Community Economic Development Committee for consideration at a future meeting. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Pearson. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. 13.6 is Uber rideshare expansion across BC. Councillor Bateman.
yeah, I just hear a lot about this, of course, and here was a letter we received from Uber Canada describing that the app is now available across all of BC, and rides will only be available where drivers actively sign up and go online to do trips. And there currently is no Uber in Sooke. Of course, just 2 weeks ago, we received a letter from Victoria Taxi about its plans to provide service from Kangaroo Road west to Port Renfrew. I did look up, we did receive a significant report on ride hailing from staff back in July 2023. And we learned at that time that the Passenger Transportation Board has jurisdiction on these matters. So really, there's nothing to say other than to receive this for information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I thought we had received a letter about this not too long ago. Okay. That is this one. Oh, I thought it came to a regular meeting, but okay, maybe I'm looking at the same letter. It doesn't matter. It's options, but I think it makes sense. Okay, so that is to receive for information by Councillor Bateman, seconded by St. Pierre. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now item 14 is where we have items removed from the consent agenda. So that was 8.8. The development permit for forming character subdivision at 6671 Logan Lane. 6671 Logan Lane, 6674, 6662, 6654 Lincroft Road. So this has been moved. Go ahead, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I just want a little bit of clarification on that, because at the Land Use Committee, there was some discussion about this extra lane, Logan Lane to Lincroft. That one of our members on the committee was adamant that this lane was removed, and yet it showed up. And so we asked for clarification of whether how the lane got back in. Now, since then, we had a staff sent this great long report. So I just have one quick question. Is the lane in or out? That's all I want to know.
In or out of what? The transportation master plan?
No,
or-
the covenant. I have to go back just a sec. We have to go back.
So,
Yeah.
sorry, through your worship to council, my understanding of this, and I'd have to confer with or defer with my engineer, manager of engineering, Miss Matson. She's done the referral on this. My understanding of it is that there was a section 219 covenant that applied to the property that basically spoke to securing north to south connection from Logan Lane down to Lincroft Avenue. I don't believe that this connection is in a transportation master plan. The purpose of those plans is to show like ultimate connections. It may have been shown in the older version of the town center conceptual plan that council has. But in terms of north-south and east-west connections, in any small development, whether they're identified in a transportation master plan or not, which identifies major ones, they are good typical connections to have for connectivity and movement of traffic through there. So my understanding is it is part of the 219 covenant, and that piece would be dedicated under that subdivision, but I would have to report back to council.
My understanding, it really had nothing to do with the transportation master plan, that there was some previous discussion in regards to these complexes. And right now, all these different ones are being molded into one. And at this previous discussion, that lane was taken out. And I was trying to find some justification. Was it taken out or was it not? From what you're telling me, the lane is in there, and you can find nothing in the past that states that lane was to come out.
I'd have to come back to council and report back on that and defer with the planning department and engineering to see what they've come up with on that. I didn't get involved in that file. That was a basic.
Yeah, well, it was a little bit of a contentious issue at the land use committee. It wasn't unanimous when it came to council.
Okay.
And so I was just hoping for some clarification. And what was sent to me, I'm sorry, I'm not a planner. For me to read through all that and come to a conclusion, I was sort of asleep in 10 minutes. So I just wanted a real clear from somebody to say, yes, it is in there, and it's in there for this reason. That's all.
Yeah, I apologize that I don't have an answer for that, but I will consult with planning and engineering and report back to council on that.
Counselor St. Pierre.
I think I'm going to also ask for clarification at this point, although I believe that this is actually specifically for development permit, and that I don't know if all of this is actually related specifically to development permit on a yes or no on the development permit, which is basically aggregating various parcels into different configurations. But in terms of trying to get some answers, I think what I just heard is that we have a right of way secured through a section 219 covenant. But my understanding is that wouldn't necessarily dictate that we would make use of it. It's not in the transportation master plan. When would a decision be made, and how would a decision be made to actually make use of the right of way? Through your worship. I'm curious about at which point is that decision actually made? And how does one affect that decision?
I'm going to have to report back to council on this in absence of the planning director and the manager of planning being able to speak to this file. I don't want to speak inappropriately or out of turn on this one. But my understanding is that it was put on those properties as a section 219 covenant as part of the subdivision or consolidation of these lots. It was part of the covenants to dedicate that as basically a north-south connection on Logan Lane. Part of the dedication for when that subdivision was to occur would be frontage improvements requirements, which would basically build out the road infrastructure as part of that right of way. That's my understanding on how it should play out. I will have to look into it and report back to council with the specifics on this file.
Okay, Counselor Bateman.
Yeah, so I look forward to that report. Just a few heads up here. There was the original covenant was March 7th, 2008. Then interestingly, when the car wash and laundromat was approved in 2013, the covenant was revised and section 7 was removed. And that's the section that discusses the north-south access route. So in the current covenant, if indeed this covenant as of April 24th, 2013 is accurate, then there is no requirement. And it's an important point because in this staff report, there is a reference to a dedicated road from Logan Lane down to Lincroft. And it's also in this other there's several diagrams that indicate the road in that position. Interestingly, in the town center plan, as our speaker said earlier tonight, there is a suggestion that there is something called the West Lane that would go right from Logan Lane right down to Horn Road. That would require expropriation, I would think, because there's houses in the way between there. However, yeah, I think I look forward to the report, basically. Thank you.
Okay, so in this case, you know, this has gone to a committee and it was on the consent agenda to be approved tonight. And now I'm hearing that council wants this to come to a future meeting. Councillor St. Pierre?
I think what you're asking speaks to what I was talking about. I think what we have here is a motion arising to request or a staff report with regards to this road dedication and whether or not it's still, what's going to happen with that. In terms of the actual development permit, I don't think that has to come back because that's something, I believe that's something separate that we can just approve, but maybe that's something to ask staff again.
Ms. Gray?
Through your worship, I'm just referring back to Ms. Matuzzi's email that she sent to council. I appreciate Councillor Beto's comment on the length of it. But the one statement I think that was kind of the summary was further review on the ultimate road design will be conducted as part of the subdivision process. To Councillor St. Pierre's point, council, and obviously we'll defer to council's direction on this, doing this step does not mean that's the end of the road for this road or non-road. Based on the information staff has at this time, that's why this is included in there. As the subdivision process progresses, that conversation will be fleshed out more on if this is an active road or is this a walking trail system? What does this connection ultimately look like as that progresses? If that
Okay.
helps.
Councillor St. Pierre?
St. Pierce.
Pardon me, Councillor Pearson.
I like the St. Pierce.
We gotta sit.
I'm going to make a motion that council authorize the issuance of the development permit PLN 02018 permit to permit a subdivision in accordance with the attached permit attachment 4 of the following properties legally described as Lot A, Section 10, Sooke Land District Plan, VIP 11754, except Plan 14552, 16276, VIP 71515. I don't know why I picked this. Authority Water Act, Section 716645, Lincroft Road. Lot 5, Section 10, Sooke Land District Plan, VIP 169, 6662, Lincroft Road. Lot 4, Section 10, Sooke Land District Plan, VIP 169, 6674, Lincroft Road, and Lot 3, Section 10, Sooke Land District Plan, EPP 31601, 6671, Logan Lane / Pearson.
And you're done.
I'll second that.
And that's seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. So would you like to speak to it, Councillor Pearson?
No, but we're voting on it a little bit. We're voting on a development permit, and I think that the subdivision will take care of the road. It's showed in our staff reports that the road is dedicated, not built. I'm pretty confident that it's all taken care of by the staff report. So the way I look at it anyways. In all the diagrams.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
Just as previously noted, actually by a member of the public, this will actually allow for more commercial space. It actually makes sense in terms of our town center plans. This doesn't actually address the other issue, but that'll come out in the wash. So I'll support that.
Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I will support this, and the reason why I'm supporting it is the explanation from our CAO, which gave some clarity to it. I was never had a problem with this development permit. The only hiccup was that where this non-road came from, I'm still not 100% sure, but I got assurances from the CAO that will be looked at in length. If it's not necessary, then it doesn't go in. If it enhances things, then it does. So I'm okay with that. So I will vote in favor of this.
Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, I will as well vote in favor, just as Councillor Beto said, thanks to their CAO's comments. It does disturb me to see a dedicated road in this agenda package, when in fact the covenant of 2013 said it removed that particular item, but the point's being made. Thank you.
Okay, well, the vision for the land is likely changed. So, at that time it was to construct the car wash and the laundromat, and now there's a different plan for that. So, I'm just gonna ask, and I'm in support of this, to staff though, in terms of the outstanding questions, like, do you need a motion arising for another report for clarity, or how would we handle that?
Well, I guess through your worship, do you want to report back, or is it just a matter of, will this be coming back at the next land use? Like, do you want
No.
a report, or is it just maybe a clearer summary of the email that Ms. Matuzzi sent?
Yeah, I think maybe a more straightforward summary would be appreciated. So perhaps just an email as a follow-up to address that would be helpful.
For sure, and I
Okay.
appreciate the details shared, but we can definitely provide a more layman understanding of that and see if that sparks more questions, and then we can take direction from council from there.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you. We'll call the question then. All those in favor, please? And that's carried unanimously. And then just to add on that, it may just be helpful just to circulate that back to the land use committee meetings, and then that might help just button the concern that was raised by committee members on this. Okay, let's see here. Go back into our agenda. Let's bear with the chair. Okay. I shouldn't have taken the staple out of this. Okay, council verbal reports. We're nearing the end. Verbal reports and updates. Who would like to go first? Councillor St. Pierre.
So the things I do remember, that I attended the night market budget survey. And the night market, as usual, was well attended, lots of people, lots of vendors, and lots of good participation in the budget survey. Councillor Pearson was there too, at least briefly, and really good. It seems to be a fantastic way to actually gather information about what people actually want. I love that we actually have different colors. We have a lot of representation on our posters from youth, a lot of orange stickers, a lot of tourist stickers in yellow. Not very many green for people who want to spend more on taxes, but hey, that's cool. I also attended the SIP, the South Island Prosperity Partnership AGM. Excellent event. I wasn't able to stay for too long, so I didn't get to schmooze. But the organization is doing really good work in terms of actually building foundations around things like Coast, which is basically working on ocean tech and the blue economy, which basically assists the entire coast. And so we all have opportunities to make use of that. The Indigenous Prosperity Center is also doing a large number of projects. They had an amazing youth conference. They've got an uptake on their website. They're doing a lot towards procurement, small scale procurement, because they understand they're not producing huge amounts, but they're doing good work in terms of making that possible. What was the other? They're doing really important work on following COVID. They basically brought everyone together to basically figure out what to do in terms of supporting the economy. That work is now going to be happening again. And they're doing a huge amount of groundwork in terms of making sure that there's actually some coherence and input from all the various players in terms of where the economy of the region wants to go and how to support it. So lots of good stuff happening there. Could go on, but I don't think I will. Thanks.
Go ahead, Councillor Pearson.
I also went to the night market last week, attended the budget survey. It was very interesting for the time that I was there, and I will go again. I said I would go next week, but I don't think we can. I also, the next night, attended the staff District of Sooke golf tournament. And I'm happy to report that my team members and I, Fire Chief Kennedy, Paul Bohame, and Cassandra were the best golfers at +1. with contributions from all team members. It was a good, it was good. Saturday night, I went to the summer solstice dinner, here in Sooke. It was excellent. And Mr. Bruce Berry was there as the attending artist, and he attended tonight, and he signed me a book cover, and his painting was for the movie Indian Horse, sponsored by Clint Eastwood. So I've got a signed bookmarker from him. It was an extremely positive evening, the summer solstice dinner, and I was the lone counselor there, but it was really a very positive dinner, from little babies being there to people old as me. And so no, it was a great event. And then the museum open house on Sunday, which was completely sold out of salmon dinners, 200 plus dinners. And at a salmon dinner, I get the important job of cooking hamburgers and hot dogs. And we sold out of hamburgers and hot dogs. I had an awesome chance to talk to our MLA. I did speak briefly with our new MP who showed up. The mayor, myself, Councillor Bateman were there, and it was a great event. And they are extremely happy with the results of how the day went. That's it for me.
Councillor Bateman?
Okay.
Yeah, I was there yesterday at the museum. I arrived late, so I missed your opening remarks, but I did get to meet the MP and the MLA, and I got a hot dog served by Councillor Pearson and former Councillor Casper. Sorry. Oh. Okay. So there was that. That was a great afternoon. I mentioned the Island Health Zoom call where all sorts of interesting information was shared. But I won't go into that now. The West Shore Arts and Culture Intermunicipal Committee had another one of its meetings around the West Shore 400-seat theater. And while we did not support their community grant application, I did get clarity. They will not be seeking any direct funding from the District of Sooke for the time being. So maybe at some later date, we'll have to say thanks, but no thanks. However, they are developing some Plan B options as they continue to seek a suitable location, and that includes the concept of sponsoring arts productions that would tour around the West Shore and utilize places like the AMCS Theatre, Community Hall, St. Mary's, and Metros, and other spots. I got, as a member of the CRD Arts Commission, I was given tickets to the opening night of the Victoria Jazz Fest on Friday, which was remarkable headliner. And then there was an opening performance from a 15-year-old guitarist from Nanaimo. So in the wake of David Gogo, here's this newcomer whose name has gone, but he's a talent. The next Arts Commission meeting is this coming Wednesday, and we're learning about the second round of project grant recipients this year. And I'm happy to report that grants will be going to Sooke Community Radio and the Sooke Festival Society. So that's good news. And finally, the Age Friendly Committee meeting on June 11th. We're taking a fresh look at the 2015 Sooke Age Friendly Action Plan. That was created when we had a population of 13,000. We're up to 17,400 now, and we continue to grow, of course. It's really interesting. So we'll be bringing this to council, I think. It's great to see what we've done over these 10 years. There's a lot of things have happened. Accessibility is baked into the building code, the transportation master plan, this new accessibility plan we have. There was a big emphasis back then for affordable housing. We have 287 units at Macola and Knox Vision. The pending expansion of Francis Gardens as well. There was talk of the Affordable Housing Reserve Fund, and that's grown nicely and will grow at an accelerated rate, given our approval tonight. Develop a multi-use community facility. The gathering place, of course, is evolving as it will. And there were just a couple of things that are not happening. Air Manor expansion. was deemed to be a major priority back in 2015. And of course, at that point, we did have a development permit and that just elapsed as Island Health took its focus elsewhere. And also allocating district staff time to age-friendly work was the top recommendation back then. And so we'll bring this forward through the age-friendly committee. I'm meeting with Mary Dunn tomorrow to talk about that further.
Thank you. Counselor Beddoes.
I'm sorry to say, I don't really have anything to report on some of these very important things that Country Market and the museum. I'm very pleased that councillors were there. Unfortunately, I had some Lions commitments. I'm a serving officer with some Lions, so I wasn't able to attend those, but I'm glad that we had representation. So nothing to report.
Excellent. So thank you. Glad that council members have been able to attend various events. I was at the museum as well. My son and his friend got the last 2 strawberry shortcake orders, which they were very happy about. And I was pleased to connect with our new member of parliament. We were in the lineup for the salmon dinner together. So that was very positive. And then shared a table with our MLA La Jeunesse, who I'm connecting with later this week again. They also shared there that they're gearing up for a crab festival. So that is very exciting in the fall, and it's just wonderful to see the work that the museum is doing. There's now, you can go inside the lighthouse and get that perspective of Sooke, so which we enjoy doing. And often at the night market, there's a little bit of a display open there with former councillor Lanny Seaton from Langford is often giving a lot of information there. I'll share that I'll be at the Sooke Fling because we don't have a meeting until into July on the 14th. So the Sooke Fling is on July the 6th. It's a Sunday. I'll give some opening remarks. On July 7th in John Phillips Memorial Park, I will be crowning Sooke's Spectacular Senior. So you'll likely have seen the collections, and it's narrowed down a bit throughout the community. So well done to the Sooke Region Community Health Network for that work. Today, the UBCM hosted a webinar with provincial staff as the province is seeking input on changes to the community charter as to when meetings can close. So they expressed that this was a direct ask from local governments, as well as some First Nation communities, as well as previous past endorsed resolutions. So there wasn't much. So yeah, they're throughout the summer, they're doing that information session right now. I was going to ask a rather pointed question, but chose not to, so I'll leave it for now. It seems reasonable. I have had and attended the Victoria Downtown Rotary Club and gave, I was their keynote at an early morning last week, and spoke about Sooke's challenges and successes since we incorporated. They picked that up from our 25-year anniversary event. And spoke there, and also participated in a Greater Victoria Chamber / Czech News podcast interview that they're airing. So with Bruce Williams. So I hope it's not boring, because you just sort of be like a talking head in a box. But they will be adding in some photos, which I think will give it more visual interest than listening to me talk in a box. But I did my best, but I was trying to be humor. I don't know, not an entertainer, clearly. Our MLA shared that he will be opening his constituency office towards the end of the month in Sooke. So stay tuned for an opening event, which is great. Canada Day, as you know, is shifting over to Fred Milne Park. And the Lions is, of course, taking on that work on behalf of the district. So look forward to seeing everyone there on July the 1st. I've signed up for a day for the night market, which is always great. It's a similar exercise that we do with school-aged children when they visit. It's a bit more pictures, though, with younger students, but they never put the dots where you think it's going to be. And it's never the same things, class to class, group to group. So it's just interesting to gain their perspective, but having now spoken with some EMCS students as well as Journey Middle School students, I think the positives is that they feel they're involved in the decision-making. And even speaking with some who were younger I was too, when I first got elected till now, who are in their 20s, they're homeowners, they're involved in the community. And so they are seeing themselves reflected. And I think that's a real win for the district and what we're doing. They may not be present here, but they do feel involved. Sea Park Pool is closed at the moment. It's the annual shutdown, the annual maintenance. And they're also looking for community feedback. And I can't remember what it's called. It's like a floating thing that they put in the pool and you can climb on it. So once it was Tsunami the Dragon and then other pools. So they're canvassing input between some sort of a climbing wall that you climb and fall into the deep end, or like an obstacle course of things that you crawl over. And so I've done that, like they're looking for that. And I think what seems to be getting traction is the obstacle course. And it's this floating object in the pool. I don't know. There's a technical name for it. I don't know. It's a thing. It floats in the pool. Yes. And then other than that, there is I think an upcoming land use committee on July the 3rd, I believe. 3rd, yes. But otherwise, I'll just send a regards to wishing everyone a happy Canada Day. We'll see you at Friend Mill Park. And otherwise, we'll see you sooner into the summer. So stay safe, everyone, and stay cool. It's unseasonably chilly, but that's going to change. So be safe out there. And on that note, I'll call for a motion to adjourn, the time being 9:47. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Pearson.
Adjourn into closed.
Oh, yes, sorry, you are correct. A motion to close the meeting during that time, but close due to 91C, labor relations or other employee relations. Okay, that's still moved and seconded. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you to those that were in the gallery and those viewing online.